18 players, we are now live. Having a little technical difficulties. You guys have been following us all week. You know how awesome Comcast hasn't been. So here we are. We got all kinds of fun stuff ready to share with you. Exciting things. And Bob, let's start off with the question that we didn't get to answer yesterday and dive right into the team.
And we're gonna get to every single question today. You know we do. We're starting with a deep dive from yesterday. So Smitty, we saw your question up there. We are gonna get to that. I saw you chatting with Cash as well. But we want to hit on Jackson's question. This was the deep dive that we said on yesterday's broadcast that we said we'd start with today.
That's right.
So welcome back, everybody. If you're just joining us today for the first time, how we roll is we do deep dives and quick hits here. If you want a question, feel free to ask. The community in the chat will answer your question as well. If you want a quick hit, just a couple word explanation, a little, maybe sometimes a little bit longer if we have like a little bit of interest if we have a little bit more to say about it, we'll do a quick hit on that. Deep dives is we take a little bit more time. They take a little bit more time to kind of go together. So Jackson, here we have your deep dive from yesterday that we answered as part of a quick hit, but we'll get to that right now to start the show. Jackson, love Henry, Hall, Mixon, Bigsby, love it. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Reed, Puka, D-Hop, Ladd, McMillan. D-Hop is looking better. As we all saw today, he's going off to the Chiefs. Not saying he's going to be elite, but it's a better situation now. So for everybody that held on to him, in the vein that Joe was talking about Kelvin Ridley a couple days ago.
Would rather have been Ridley, I'm not going to lie.
Conversation is kind of there. So
yeah, dude, if Juju's out and he ends up taking that one receiver role, you hit a lottery with D-Hop.
Yeah. So 10-man full PPR, currently 6-1. Start 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 1 flex. And we want to know, who do we package together with Garrett Wilson, and what do we target? So let's just flat out say, I think Love is going to be a fantastic quarterback heading on into this season and continuing to go through the season. I'm absolutely not worried about quarterback, and I'm absolutely not worried about your running back room. So let's just get that out of the way to start with. Henry, Hall, Mixon, and Bigsby have the chance to put up 20 points in a given week, 25 plus points in a given week, with very high floors now that we see what these offenses are going to do with them. Bigsby has potential to be electric. We'll see what his future holds. So it comes down here. Then at tight end, Pitts and Hawk are perfectly viable tight ends for the season, with my lean initially being towards Hawk, maybe after a week or two of him coming back healthy. And Pitts has been not as bad as he was week 1. And so he's kind of been serviceable at that point. Like we have said before, you only need about 10 points to be a top 10 tight end a week. So that's fair enough. He's capable of doing that. So then sitting here with A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Reed, Puka, D-Hop, Ladd, and McMillan, you've got yourself a really good core group of wide receivers. You only need to have the 2 best. And the 2 best could come in lots of different directions here.
Yeah, Puka, it's Puka and it's Reed and Brown right now, but in the playoffs, it's probably Puka and Reed or Puka and Brown. So, Jackson, what I think I'm telling you to do is to do what Bob would call a super value trade. I think you're doing Wilson and Reed for a mom. You're only starting 2 receivers.
Yeah.
Let's face it, Mixon should be your flex. Go get a mega star. Ahmad's the one I would pick because you're not going to get Chase. Well, if you can get Chase or J. Jeff, those 2 also are applicable. They're just harder to pull. But if you can get one of those 3, that's where I'm sitting at. What do you think, Bob?
I think that going into the rest of this season, that I am mostly thinking about knowing your record over the past couple of weeks. I think it's important to target a player right now that's already had their bye. So we're talking the CeeDee Lamb, we're talking the Amon-Ra. In addition to that, you're going to have to really think about that flex position when it comes down towards this back half of the season. So looking at those matchups coming down the pipeline, especially in your fantasy playoffs, and seeing what exactly do I want to roll with? Because while I absolutely love having Henry, Hall, Mixon, and Bigsby, it may not be a necessity for 5 weeks down the line.
Oh no, I don't think so at all, Bob. I think the fact that he's going to have his running back insurance with a top-notch running back in Mixon.
There. I agree.
He's his flex. His flex is basically going to be a debate in the playoffs between Puka, Hop, and if McMillan it becomes the value that Godwin had, McMillan. Otherwise, it's a 3-horse race between Mixon, Puka, and Hop. That's what I'm saying. I know you hate moving Garrett Reed or Reed. I know you don't want me to say that, but I think that's the best thing Jackson can do. Wilson and Reed for a mega receiver, and then you're lining up the mega receiver and Brown. Dude, I think that's the answer.
I didn't disagree with that statement.
That also means you got Henry in the 3rd round. Congrats on you, man.
What I'm saying more so than that, Joe, is that I do agree that going out there and getting a guy in the vein of that CeeDee Lamb caliber player to pair with AJ Brown that has a good 4-5 week stretch. And I think you actually have the capital, and it's going to be an interesting trade to do because you might be able to go out there. And I just want to check.
Dude, you could buy Jeff with the amount of ammo you have.
Yeah, I just want to check the matchups for a moment. But we're seeing in week 15, 16, 17, Jackson, we're seeing that Nico Collins is coming and playing Miami, Kansas City, Baltimore. Okay? Bye week in week 14. Prior to that, if he comes back healthy, Tennessee, Jacksonville. Jacksonville would be good. Tennessee might be a little bit spotty. Miami, Kansas City, Baltimore, Tennessee, all pretty decent enough matchups for Nico. Now, the reason I mention him is that he is one of those star players right now with good volume when he returns that may not cost as much as you want to give up right now. Why I say this is because while it is a good idea, and I do agree with Joe that going out there and getting your CD or getting that Amon-Ra might make a lot of sense right now because you have the capital to do that. With a guy like Amon-Ra, we have to really look. While the name is there, and I do like him, and he's getting a decent amount of targets, especially when JMO is not kind of around. We're looking at these matchups coming down. He has Buffalo at home, Chicago away, and then San Francisco away if your fantasy playoffs end in week 17. And while I think that Buffalo is a good matchup, I would be slightly-ish concerned with the Chicago matchup being that divisional matchup there. So just putting the options out on the table, while I agree with Joe that I think Amon-Ra would be a great player to own, and I think that it sets you up because the schedule coming down serves him pretty well too, especially week 10, 11, and 12 against Jacksonville, Houston, and Indy. But there are going to be a decent amount of games where moving that capital might not pay dividends right away for you. When it comes to CeeDee Lamb, Jackson, we've got Philly, Tampa, and Carolina, 3 of the worst passing defenses for the most part, and 3 defenses that give up a lot. And so for me, out of all those guys, I'd be shooting for CeeDee Lamb. And I think that right now, a Garrett Wilson and a running back would more so kind of, depending on what that owner needed, Jackson, would probably get you into CeeDee Lamb faster than 2 wide receivers. That's the only reason.
That's probably true too.
That's the only reason I mentioned the running back aspect of it, Jackson. And while I agree that I think Garrett Wilson and Reed are good players to move there, I do want you to consider that although I don't like moving the running back, checking on the schedules of Mixon, Hall, Bigsby, and Henry going into the playoffs. And you don't want to get too cute with it, but I do think that one of those guys is capable of being moved because when Puka comes back, there is talk that Cooper Kupp might be traded. And so he all of a sudden becomes.
Well, Puka's the number one, regardless of whether Kupp's there or not. I mean,
you'd be rolling out Brown and Puka, and then you'd be searching for that flex. But for me, you already have that flex. You already have those flexes there. So if you're going to go out there and make a deal right now, it's got to be for somebody that's got a good schedule for the playoffs. And CeeDee Lamb has a good schedule for the playoffs.
Sure does.
If I'm going after anybody, that is the one that I'm attacking right now. So let's get into a couple of these quick hits that came down the line.
There's a lot of quick hits, guys. We appreciate all of them. Make sure you answer your comments starting off with either DD or quick hit.
And then Smitty, we'll get to your deep dive that you share at the beginning in the beginning of the chat there. When should I release trade from Kareem Hunt? Bryce, I don't think you should release from Kareem Hunt. I think that the news from Pacheco, while it's nice to hear, medically speaking, yes, this injury is not similar to the injury that Andrews had in the degree that Andrews had some ligament damage. Everything we're hearing, it was a clean bone break, whatnot. But this doesn't really logistically all depend on the health of Pacheco. It depends upon the record of the Chiefs. And if they can get things done with Kareem Hunt and don't have to force Pacheco, who could be the future back early, then they won't.
So by future back, you mean playoff this year, real life playoffs back, not future like 6 years from now future. Just clarify.
Talk to Kansas City fans, Bryce. Kareem Hunt looks good. Kareem Hunt looks real good. I'm holding Hunt, and if I'm trading him, I'm putting him in a deal for a 2-for-1 player that's going to elevate my team over the next 4 or 5 weeks, because that's where Kareem Hunt's value is probably really going to shine, Bryce.
And the Bryce, for the answer to the when, I think your best point to move him is going to be Tuesday, because he'll put up another good week this week, and then boom, you're hitting him at a kind of peak value, knowing that this whole Pacheco thing would have subsided a little bit. You do it right now, it looks like you're running from headlines. You do it on Tuesday, it looks like a conscientious choice.
Exactly. Cash, I like the fact that you were up early this morning. I heard this news while I was walking out the door for work around 7:30, and I couldn't believe it. I was about to text Joe, but I figured he'd hear about it anyway when he woke up. It's free. It's so like this was a player that a week ago I was on the bus to drop him, and I think most people were because he wasn't doing anything. And now all of a sudden he's thrust into a starting role. We'll have to see how it jives. There should be going well, but we'll see. So flex one, Mooney, Jacoby, D-Hop, full PPR, or I could flex Bigsby. I would be cautious about Bigsby. I think that I would like to play Bigsby this week, but that game script could get away from them later in that game, and he might be scripted out of that game based off the way that Green Bay plays defense in the second half. So, Joe, what is your initial lean on this as we sit here on Wednesday?
My initial lean is I love sleep way too much to be doing anything at 4 a.m. So up on you for learning that. But no, dude, I'm playing Hop. I mean, you have to roll dirty with it. So that's what I would do outright. I get that Bigsby's also a play too. I mean, you're blessed, man. There's no other way to say that.
Yeah, and I
think that I'm playing Hop. Well, I think that I'll be playing Hop. I'll be playing Bigsby this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Cash, I think the way I would order it, would be, I think if Jacoby's healthy, I think I'd be on Jacoby there, and we can deep dive that question a little bit later if you'd like. Dan,
Oh, to
We'll
me,
get to
Jacoby was a distant third. I'm sorry for ignoring him. To me, he was a distant third.
We'll get to your quick hit here, Dan. With Jayden Daniels probably not playing this week, should I start Tua or should I start Kirk Cousins? I think the answer for me would be Tua. I think it's close. I think it's really close when we look at the schedule this week and we look at the quarterback rankings. We have Kirk Cousins, I think, a smidge higher than Tua.
Yeah, we got Cousins about 10 points higher than Tua this week.
Yeah, so all things considered, I think that both of them should be pretty decent enough plays this week. My initial lean
on that note, we're not giving Tua a whole lot of love up front. So he's kind of a prove it spot. Cousins has the track record. Don't get me wrong, there might be Tua drops 80. I think it's highly unlikely that they do not baby the shit out of him week one, knowing how bad they sucked without him. Sorry for getting all left field there, but that's the reality of Tua. Cousins, they're just riding. He's in a zone. He put up 500 2 weeks ago against the same defense.
Yeah.
So I'm going Cousins.
Yeah, and just as a note, the players that were on this defense the last time that Cousins threw for 500 yards, their defense wasn't healthy last time. So the odds that happens again.
It was only 2 weeks. You don't dramatically change that much in 2 weeks.
Their best player came back. So that's why I say that. Their best
player. Yeah, he came back, but he still dinged. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 10-team PPR, Carlos, trade away Pickens for Rome and a third.
No.
I wouldn't do that. I see why you would want to consider doing that, Carlos. But Pickens still has a decent amount of value in dynasty leagues. I know Rome is young. I know it's his first year, and there's a lot of upwards potential for Rome. But we really know what Pickens offers us. We know that Pickens is a big boom player with a lot of really decently low floor weeks. So in my mind, I'm still okay with having Pickens. And the third doesn't really sway me much. Maybe if it was a second, I would consider it. But I think that I'm holding on to Pickens there, Carlos. Cash,
I definitely am. Pickens has no competition around him, man. That's no doubt.
I totally hear you on this, Cash. I love when I can put up so many points against the team that's trash talking me the most in the league. And for all it's worth, I do hope you lay a big 150 on them. Cash.
Oh, at least.
When it comes to these players here, we'll get to that in a moment. Aman, it's nice to feel good about 1-6. Again, 1-6, you're still in it. Your percentage is low, but you're still in it.
Had a perfect game.
You're not out of it yet. Looking at your lineup here, and especially looking at Aubrey as the kicker, you got a kicker that's capable of putting up 10 plus points. You have a tight end that is definitely capable of putting up 10 plus points. Cooper might go for 12, 13. Reed's capable of doing the same thing.
We still got Rachaad White in the roster.
Hey, Rachaad White's worth starting this week, man. Rachaad White is worth starting this week. We went over that yesterday.
We did. I just don't like starting. It. Amon, as I told you before, what I would like to do if I were you is let Coop have 2 big weeks and then maximize his trade because he's going to fall apart as he gets colder. It's what he does.
I love where your team's. I love that as a 1-6 team, that team is still capable of winning. It's not full of players that aren't capable of going off. Quick hit here.
That's right. And to your question here, absolutely, it's going to help Kelce. Because there's going to be more total points scored by Kansas City. More points raises everyone's boat. I mean, it's a simple stat. The more offense your team produces in real life, the bigger the pie is to be broken up in fantasy. And Hopkins is going to give that to him. He's nowhere near the type of receiver of Rice or Juju, but at least he's a quality guy that'll be in the right spot and come down with the ball, which, that's how you move the ball downfield. Mahomes knows how to do everything. They are not system locked.
And Amon, what this says to me, just as Joe stated, is that I feel better. Like yesterday, we were talking about Kelce, and Kelce was one of those players that you can definitely go and grab. That with the injury to Rice, that opened up a decent amount of targets for Kelce. He's older, So what I like, and same with Hopkins, is being a little bit older, right? Is that there is a greater potential now with a better group of wide receivers around that they're going to get closer to the end zone. And that being closer to the end zone, within that 20, 10-yard line, that's Kelce's kind of go-to zone. So if I can get Kelce and get him more red zone opportunities, Kelce's points will definitely go up. So this is only good for Travis Kelce. Don, welcome. Who do I start this week? Do I start Waddle over Reed and Andrews or Kraft this week? I know that things are concerning when you look at what happened to Reed this past week, and nobody likes to have a lot of players, essentially that we were relying on at wide receiver had terrible matchups, or they had good matchups, but then didn't perform well. That didn't.
So we have Reed 20 points ahead of Waddle for this week's rankings. So to me, that's a no doubt. I'm going with Reed. Starting point. And then we have. Let's just back up with Baltimore for a hot minute. Is it fair to say that Andrews is officially the number one tight end again, and that likely experiment is over?
I said it the other day. I mean, you can say it again.
I didn't want to believe it, but you said it, and it's probably true.
But they still that being said, 4 tight ends, though. They still use 4 tight ends. So I mean,
I know it sucks. But that being said, both of them we have projected within 1.5 points of each other. So that's just which one you're more comfortable being. Kraft and Andrews. They're 0.5 point within each other. So, do you want to go with 2 Packers? Probably not. So I'd probably go. I definitely am starting Reed. So I'd probably put Andrews in the other slot.
Well. And Dawn, I think the other thing that needs to be stated about this as well is that when we come and we look at Jacksonville's defense, I'm just going to take this as an aside for a moment. When we come and we look at Jacksonville's defense does a lot of things that benefit owning Reed this week in terms of their defensive coverages. And when we look at what Kraft is good at, let me pull up tight ends real quick. Let me pull up the tight ends real quick. When we look at tight ends and we look at Kraft and versus Mark Andrews, I think that Kraft is also a decent play enough this week. He might score a little bit less. I'd have to think about this one a little bit more, but my initial lean would be Reed and Andrews. But also just understand that even Mark Andrews with those touchdowns still only got 4 receptions. So if he doesn't get those touchdowns, it's not going to be a blessing for you either. I'll come back to that later in the show, Don. So if you stick around, I'll come back later to that in the show. Do I start Higgins, James Conner, or Cook in the flex this week? Joe, what's your initial lean?
We have Higgins projected to put up about 16 points this week, and that's for PPR. I'm just looking up Connor real quick to make sure I'm not missing him, but I don't see a scenario where they're going to outscore. Now, we got Connor at 13 points-ish. So, yeah, it's Higgins. That's Higgins all day.
Yeah.
Also love your pondering picture.
And I also think when it comes down to your decision-making process with these 3 players specifically, one of the things to manage is the idea of James Conner. They don't really go off of James Conner much. They really don't. But the Eagles also struggle defending the pass. So I think my initial lean would be Conner for the sustained volume. But Higgins, I think, is that guy that's going to take it to the next level against the Eagles. That's my initial lean there, and I don't think that I'm flexing. Cook this week.
No.
You're welcome, Don. Anybody in the chat? We'll get to all of the.
That being said, Connor and Cook are assuming Cook's healthy, are only 0.5 point apart from each other.
Yeah, it's close, but I think it's something. That in later weeks that decision is going to be something that kind of kills the momentum of your team going forward. And the Cook versus Connor every week in the flex is a tricky decision to make. So if you're making trades right now, I think that one of those two players should be moved. Chuba or Ramondre this week, Otten or Laporta this week. Looking at what we're facing this week in terms of defenses, I mean, I think I don't want to mess with the Patriots this week. When we look at the Patriots from like a game script perspective, Joe, the Jets defense, yes, the Jets defense just allowed a couple running backs to really ball out against them. But also, the Jets defense kind of can be figured out through the passing game, but I don't know if Drake May is there yet. Russell Wilson kind of tore them apart. So as I see it, Chuba has been fairly reliable, but he's going against a tougher defense. So while I don't really like running out Ramondre, I do think that my initial lean here on Wednesday would be to roll out Ramondre over Chuba. And right now, in terms of wide receivers, or right now in terms of tight ends, I think that the way that the Titans play, that, it doesn't really benefit Sam Laporta a lot. So I think my initial lean there would be Cade Otton.
See, so I'm going to be opposite. I'm 100% on Chuba over Ramondre, knowing that Dalton's 100% not playing after that car crash. I'm going Chuba all day. All they're going to do is hand the ball off to him. And with J-Mo getting suspended because he doesn't know how to do PEDs correctly, that's going to step Laporta up to where he was last year. Laporta's going to go off this week.
That's a fair assumption to make. But again, I mean, Cade Otton, what other wide receiver are they going to throw to there too?
That's fair. At the end of the day, I trust the higher scoring offense of Detroit.
It's a good situation to be in, Gordon. I'd have to take a look at that. I'm gonna jot that down, and I'll revisit that one tomorrow, because I do. Those two players will come up a lot, I feel, for a lot of people this week, especially Ramondre, because the matchup for him looks better. But that's only if Drake May can get rolling. If Drake May can't get rolling against that defense, Ramondre's going to struggle. Jesse, I dropped Pacheco for Dobbs, then dropped Dobbs for Hopkins. Was this good? It's not bad. It's a lot of dropping and adding, but I think you ended up on a player. I think regardless of what player you ended up on, I think both Dobbs and Hopkins have value moving forward in the season. Dobbs is getting targeted a lot on the outside. Hopkins has now moved to a better team with a better quarterback situation. He's a better player when he has a better quarterback. I
still on the team where I believe Dobbs is the best weapon Green Bay has. I just want to say that. I know he loves Reed, but I'm on Dobbs.
Did I overreact about all this Kupp health and trade rumor stuff? Sent Kupp and Brian Robinson for Brees and Wandale. I think you did. You did, Nino. You got back a high flourish guy in Wandale. He runs a lot of routes out of the slot primarily. Kupp should be a banger when coming back. Again, I say should be because the health it's all up in the air.
I think getting Bryson Wandale's a win, man. I don't see this being a problem at all. I think this is a good thing.
Again, I think that we'll have to see Kupp's health. But if you needed to get off a wide receiver, Nino, I think it's fair enough to move off of Kupp and move into Brees if you wanted a better running back. Because while Robinson does have a high floor, I think his ceiling is capped by Jane Daniels and Austin Eckler, whereas Brees's ceiling is not capped by any of the running backs that he has behind him. So
Brees is
really depends on what you needed. Smitty.
There's some Brees Henry teams out there that look really scary.
Start one. Dell, Pearsall, Addison, Flowers. So as we sit here today,
Smitty, do you not want to start Flowers? Can we just start with that? Because we answered this twice yesterday with Flowers. Do you just not want to start him? Can you just be real?
Okay, so let's be honest here. Let's be honest here, Smitty. Is that yes, Flowers had a terrible week this past week, but looking at what he's facing this week, he is expected to score more this week on his routes run. Okay. So if he is running more based off of his routes run, if he's getting more, he's supposed to get a decent percentage higher. I really do think Zay's the play this week. I really do think that. While the other guys have some pretty decent enough matchups, I don't think Pearsall is worth rolling out. And when I look at Addison in terms of, what could he do? He has a similar-ish percentage expected higher. Both are reasonable plays, but I think that Zay Flowers gets my nod. Nick, is Jayden Reed a good wide receiver to trade for rest of the season? Yes. Jayden Reed is a good wide receiver to trade for the rest of the season. He owns Green Bay's slot. So when you go in and you look at the stats for the rest of the season, Nick, look at the teams that he's facing, and you're probably going to find enough matchups where those teams are not great against slot wide receivers. He takes the majority of his snaps, just like Wan'Dale Robinson, out of the slot. I think he's a great play rest of the season, and he's a guy that I have on my team, and I want on my team. So if you're leaving the quick hits in the chat, we'll definitely get through all the quick hits, guys, and we'll move through the DDs as they come. So Dylan here, DK's most likely going to be out. Should I put in Tank, Rico Dowdle, or Addison in his place? Also, Kraft or Kincaid. Already starting Love with Jaden out and Jacobs. Okay, so a lot of things to consider on this, Dylan, and we could deep dive this if you want to. As I said, this game against the Jaguars could be pretty messy for the Jaguars. Green Bay's defense plays better in the second half. If Green Bay holds the lead in the first half, you're probably going to see a lot of Jacobs in the second half. A lot of Jacobs in the second half. If they're not holding the lead, then it's probably going to be a decent amount towards Kraft and Reed and such like that. So where I fall on this is I am absolutely okay rolling out Tucker Kraft because we haven't really seen much from Dalton Kincaid over the last several weeks. Tucker Kraft has been an explosion. So his expected points, of course, is going to drop. But his expected points is still only a little bit smaller than Kincaid's. I'm on Kraft over Kincaid. And when it comes to the three guys that you have on your roster right there, I think that I would be rolling out probably Addison.
It's definitely Addison.
Out of those guys right there, Dylan.
It's definitely Addison. Kraft and Kincaid's a toss-up, but Bob gave you a good argument for Kraft.
Gaming. Should I start Waddle over Aaron Jones? I have both Josh Jacobs and Garrett Wilson I could swap out as well. I'm starting Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
I don't think that Aaron Jones is a player that you should take out of your lineups right now. He's only done good things when he's been in the lineup. I think I'm all the way on Aaron Jones this week.
Yep, that's the right answer.
Don, we answered that question. And Waddle and Kraft, Tua's back. Half point PPR flex. Chase Brown, Amari Cooper, Hopkins, McMillan. This is a nice problem to have, Steve.
Are we not doing Waddle or Kraft?
Waddle, no, that was the answer. He was answering somebody else's question.
Oh my God.
When it comes to the matchups this week, when we take a look at the Bills matchup on paper here, Bills facing the Seahawks. Seahawks pass a lot. So there could be a decent amount of opportunities for the Buffalo Bills to get the ball back relatively quickly. I say this because there could be a decent amount of incompletions and stalled drives. They're not running the ball as much as other teams. And so my initial lean here, while I do like Chase Brown to be a closer against if it comes to it for the Eagles, I don't think Chase Brown is going to see a lot of play if the Bengals have to pass a lot. When it comes to Hopkins, I agree with Joe that Hopkins could do well, but he is dealing with some leg soreness from being down bad there in Tennessee. And I don't think McMillan is trustworthy enough to roll yet. I'm on Amari Cooper. I'm on Amari Cooper this week, and I think his opportunities will be decently plentiful, although their secondary is back healthy. He did really well in the limited time that he had.
That being said, Steve, McMillan's a guy I'm hitting a lot in DFS this week because the potential role he is stepping into is massive and his price is low.
His price is really low. Definitely really, really, really low. But I think Amari's the answer there. Gordon.
Amari is the answer there, sir.
Gordon, I will come back to that question. Joe's initial lane is Chuba and Laporta. Mine is Ramondre and Otten, so that probably doesn't help very much. Nick, do I trade Waddle for Waddle or Reed? I would trade for both. If I had the draft capital, or if I had the capital right now to trade into both Waddle and Reed, I would do that right now.
If I had to pick between the two, it's Reed, though, no doubt, because of the fragility possibility of Tua.
Yes. Anybody that's in the chat right now, we're rolling through all the quick hits. We do have our deep dives queued up. Anybody that has just joined, if you want a question answered and you want a quick answer, we'll quick hit and you'll be at the end of the queue of the quick hits. Deep dive, you'll go to the end of the queue for the deep dives. We're going to roll through a couple of quick hits continuing.
And by the way, that deep dive queue is currently Smitty, Jackson, and Dan. We will hit them all.
Should I trade my BTJ, Deontay Johnson, and White for Brian Robinson Jr. and Pickens? I think you're giving up too much. And here's what I'm going to say, Jay. Rashad White's back on the menu. It's an ugly menu item. It is like going to a 5-star restaurant and them having chicken nuggets or chicken tenders on the radar. So,
but dude, this might be the only time you can move them. Get something for them.
It might be, but I'm not moving BTJ.
Yeah, that's the answer. You got to fix it without BTJ in it.
If I can move Deontay and White for Brian Robinson Jr., I'd be okay with that. But just an FYI, Deontay Johnson might get traded. So the same thing with Hopkins, the same thing that happened. I would love
Johnson a whole lot more in Kansas City than Hopkins.
The news
I can tell you
is
that.
saying,
That'd be scary.
The news is speculating. It's speculating, and it's just speculation.
Well, they're all speculating now. But they have Carolina has said they're not extending Johnson, so he's going to be a free agent.
Deontay might go to Tampa Bay. So I am not trading out of Deontay right now. Because I think he could be successful if he's paired up with Baker Mayfield.
And guys, for those of you who've been watching with us, the difference between the Deontay speculation, the Adams speculation, we were saying the whole time, do not trade into Adams because he wasn't going to come back, and then he missed those 2 weeks. Deontay's still playing. It's with no quarterback situation, but he's still playing. So that's another value in his thing.
And to Z Smitty's comment down here, absolutely. To the moon. Incognito, we see you. Adam, we see you. Cash, Quincy, Jonathan, Aiden, MT, we got you, all those quick hits. We're going to get through to all of them. Mega, we see you. Kitty, we see you.
Yeah, we got to start speeding up our quick hits, Bob. We're getting too long on them.
Gozy, quick hit here. 2 teams, full PPR each. Team 1, Komet or Kincaid. I'm on Komet.
Me too.
Komet in that matchup. When it comes to needing 2 flexes, Rashad White, Tank Bigsby, Chase Brown, Odunze, Allen, and Ridley. I know that Ridley kind of got a little bit sexier with the exit of Hopkins, but again, he's on a low.
He's still going the order he wrote him.
Team. So
I might put Ridley ahead of Allen, but other than that, I'm going the order he wrote him.
So where I'm at on the flex, I'm absolutely gozy on Rashad White and Tank Bigsby this week because of what I said about Chase Brown's ability to potentially be phased out of the game and the untrustworthiness of if you wanted to start a wide receiver, I think it'd be Keenan Allen over any of those other wide receiver guys that you have floating around there. Don, we got you on that one already. So, Kitty, pick 3, wide receiver, tight end league. Pitts, Njoku, Otten, Shakir, Wan'Dale Robinson. I lost Evans, Godwin, and DJ. That's rough. But you were on the right track. Those 3 players were great value when you had them. So you're probably sitting in a good position right now.
Yeah, they'll come back good too.
Looking at what's going to happen this week, the Browns game is going to be very disgusting.
It's a Browns game.
But insofar as that is true, Jameis Winston could really ignite something with Njoku this week. I think that right now
bullet through his chest.
I think that right now Wandale is a pretty good play for me this week.
Yeah, Wandale has to be one of your three. That
I'd
part's
start
easy.
with Wandale. Joe, who do you have as the other two?
Probably Otten for all the usage reasons, and I really can't say Njoku, so I have to say Pitts.
And I mean that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
but just
I can't pick Njoku.
I know you can't.
Everything. I mean, everything Tampa has is. I might go Otten instead of Pitts. Well, I'm definitely taking Otten. So yeah, I guess it's Pitts.
And Shakir provides a really good floor. So he's in that.
Not sure he's going to anymore.
Even if Cooper is good, I still think that Shakir will be good for 4 or 5 receptions for about 60 yards. So
let's do an aside about Buffalo real quick. I think Shakir was the deep magic. I think he's getting phased out by Coleman now that Cooper's there to take the possession. I think because Shakir was getting possession.
I think
I think that Shakir's going to get phased out by the Cooper trade and not Coleman.
I think Coleman and Curtis Samuel are the guys that I think that will lose a little bit to Cooper, not Shakir.
Curtis Samuel didn't have anything to lose.
Gaming, we answered that question a little bit earlier. Aaron Jones is our play. Start Purdy or Goff this week. I'm on Goff. Now the Titans run a lot of coverage that will prevent big plays, but with JMO out and them rolling Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra and the running game that they have, I think that Jared Goff is a nice play. He's probably going to put up 2 to 3 touchdowns, pass it about 20 to 25 times, and probably roll up about 265-ish yards. And I think with the Niners, I know the Cowboys aren't the best right now defensively.
That's an understatement.
Also, the Niners are really banged up. So I do think that both project pretty much very.
We have Purdy projected higher, and Purdy much more comfortable in where we think he's going to end up. I'm big time on Purdy.
Yeah, so both of them could do really well this week. I think that both of them are going to get past the 2 touchdown mark. So for me, it's who's going to get the 3rd touchdown. Purdy has the chance to get the 3rd touchdown, but I do think Goff has a nice stable floor. Mega, do I start Otten or Hunter Henry this week? Otten is a reasonable start for anybody out there looking for a tight end this week because of all of the issues that they've had. Otten is a reasonable start this week. When it comes to Hunter Henry, the Jets. Let me take a look at something about the Jets here, Joe.
So we have Hunter Henry as our 3rd tight end this week. Just starting point. We're really big on Hunter Henry this week.
Yeah,
just outright. And then Otten, not that we're down super much on Otten, but it's very hard to recapture that much lost offense. Otten's just not the same kind of stretch the field as Evans and Godwin are. It's gonna be McMillan really has to step up for Otten to be able to outperform Henry, and that's essentially your bet. Do you think the rookie's going to be able to rip the top off the way he needs to, and have it be respected?
With the way that the Jets play, I think it benefits Hunter Henry a little bit more than Otten.
Yeah.
Just did an in-season redraft. It's a 10-team PPR league. Austin, that sounds wild. I saw you put a deep dive in there. We're going to get to that. I like things like that. My wide receivers are Amon-Ra, Nick, MHJ, Devonta, Dell, and Shakir. Do I need help to bolster the group? I think you do. I think you need to move off of MHJ. That statistically, I was watching a lot of videos, and we can deep dive MHJ a little bit later, but I just don't see. They're not scheming plays for him. They're not getting his route tree extended. He's only running 1 or 2 types of plays. And if the defense is good at defending them, he's garbage. So it's not a him thing. It's also a Kyler Murray small thing as well. So he's not seeing MHJ like wide open certain times in the middle of the field. So I think if it were me, I would try to move off of MHJ, package MHJ and Dell, and see what I can get into. You might be able to move into a Terry McLaurin.
Nothing wrong with that.
Tyler Pacheco, though, is 10 times better than Hunt when healthy. There's nothing
true.
wrong with saying
Oh.
I agree with you. But also, if he doesn't have to be there and they can save him for the playoffs as a team, they're going to think about the team and not my fantasy team. So that's kind of the perspective about Isaiah Pacheco that I'm taking right now. Darius, I lost Brandon and Godwin. That hurts a lot. I have Henry Saquon.
Yeah, but the other point up.
I have Amari Cooper taking Godwin's spot, and I have Jerry Jeudy taking taking Ayuk's spot. What do you think? I don't really like Jerry Jeudy. Again, I'm not really in on anybody from Cleveland right now. He could perform really well. If I were to go after Cleveland wide receiver, it'd probably be Cedric Tillman. To that degree, though, you have some things that you can do, Darius, and we can deep dive that if you'd like to a little bit later. Mega, full PPR, start one. Pittman, Jeudy, Juwan Jennings, or Tracy.
I'm going Juwan Jennings. The Ayuk roll is so spicy. And at the end of the day, I mean, we have a lot of passing yards going up against this Dallas defense coming out. They can fix the relationship between CeeDee Lamb getting the ball more on offense, but you cannot overhaul an entire defense in a bye week. It's a bad defense. It was incredibly overrated, and they're going to get torched. It's going to be a shootout on Sunday Night Football, people.
I also just had dino-shaped chicken nuggets for lunch today, aside, because I got something from
Teacher perks.
Right thing. But no, I brought those from home because the dino chicken nuggets are cheaper than the other chicken nuggets, and they're more fun. It makes them taste better. I absolutely agree with you, Mr. Wumbo. It does make them taste better. So we're going to clear through a lot of these quick hits before we get to the deep dives here. Mega, start the Bears defense or the Lions defense this week?
Well, we have Detroit as our fourth highest rated defense, so that's the answer.
The Lions defense is not really good, but they're facing the Titans that aren't very good. So I'm kind of going to roll with them on that one. I think you could probably get a better defense though, Mega. We got you on that already there. You're okay, Mega. We got you. Josh, pick up Troy Franklin, Leggett, Taysom Hill, May, or Corum. Would be dropping Vidal. Also, someone dropped Pearsall. So should I use my number one waiver on him? I don't think it's necessary,
guys. Not on Purcell, no.
I don't think it's necessary to use it on Purcell. Purcell's going to have a role on the team. We'll have to wait and see what that role is. Troy Franklin is looking like he could be a piece, but not necessarily a piece that I need to add now. But do know that rookie wide receivers do tend to heat up later in the season as they build connections with their teams. If you need a tight end, Taysom Hill is legitimate. And if you need a quarterback, May is legitimate too. I wouldn't.
But Joshua, at the end of the day, I'd rather have Vidal over all of them unless you need a starter, because it's only a matter of time until Pickens goes down.
I also
Dobbins goes down.
I also think that Leggett is a reasonable player to pick up if Deontay Johnson gets moved.
I need him to get moved first, though.
He has to get moved first, but I think he should be rostered. Jackson, would you move Garrett Wilson straight across for Nico Collins?
Yes.
I would. I understand you wanting to off of him, and I do want to move off of Garrett Wilson, but I do think that Garrett Wilson is going to have some good games. But if I can move on to Nico, I would love that.
You'd have AJ Brown and Nico Collins rolling in your playoffs. You're going to be good.
You know, as far as it goes here, Don, we did answer this question, but I want to say, if you type your question in multiple times in the chat, just know we've seen your question. We will get to it. We are a little bit behind on our quick hits. We're trying to make those up as we get through to the deep dives. So we're about 30 minutes behind on the quick hits, but we are getting through them.
We need a hustle.
Quick hits start May, Wilson, or Tua. I don't really like the matchup this week for Russell Wilson. I understand that it is the Giants.
I think I'm going of that group. I'm going to go with Tua. But you're saying start two of them, so it's really which one are we not starting? See, Bob, I'm not worried about the Russell Wilson because almost for the same reason I'm not worried about Tua. I think Tua's going to have a blowout game just to show that again, for all the political reasons, shouldn't fire the coach. He's still the smartest man in the universe, and Tua is going to be the representative of that.
That's fair.
I cannot trust the Patriots offense more than the Steelers offense. I don't trust the Patriots offense, just period. I don't think they're going to score any points. There is reason to believe that the Giants will allow points because that's what they kind of been doing. So I would definitely lean there. And then on your running back side, I'm going Bigsby, especially with ETN supposedly not playing this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Giants Steelers game is probably going to be a little bit closer than people might say. The Steelers have looked hot and the Giants have looked bad, but Malik Neighbors is back. He'll be on Joey Porter. I think that Tracy will be relatively involved, but his role with Singletary back might be a little bit murky. I think that it would make sense to start Bigsby, Wilson, and Tua, but I could easily flip Bigsby into Tracy, knowing that I don't think that that's going to be positive game script for Bigsby.
And aside on that, I don't think Tracy's production is going down because of Singletary. I think it's going down because Neighbors is back. Yeah. He got so many garbage catches that would go to Neighbors instead.
Glide. Do I think Pacheco and Flowers for Reed is a nice deal? I do. Especially, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that think Pacheco will come back before fantasy playoffs and this can bite you in the butt, but I don't think so.
John, I'd rather have Reed anyway.
Yeah, I'd rather have Reed. Quick hit, Jonathan, here. Start 3 from Adams, Wilson, JSN, Worthy, Pearsall, full PPR. So just so you know, if
bench 2. Okay.
Pearsall's not on my radar right now.
Yeah, he's not. It's pretty much the order you wrote it, dude. It's kind of what you got to go with. Although I don't want to play 2 Jets, so I'm going to bench Wilson instead of Worthy.
Yeah, I think I'm going with I do want to start JSN this week. I believe. When I look at the Bills are a team that JSN could be successful against, especially in the slot. They're running cover 2 a lot. I think I like JSN a lot. Worthy, I don't think is on my radar right now. I get the understanding to run 2 Jets, but this could easily turn into a Breece Hall fest later on in the game.
And also, Rodgers doesn't want to play fest. I don't want to have 2 anchors to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, so
Aaron Rodgers to me is a much greater negative potential than a positive potential.
I think I'm actually on Wilson, Jason, and Worthy in this one.
Well, we're the same.
Wilson, cool. Jason, Worthy. Cap for life. Joe appreciates staying on brand. Love it. Coleman,
love it.
Coleman or McMillan, is this this week or moving forward? If it's this week, I think that I'm on out of these 2 players that I'm on McMillan, because I think that he doesn't realistically have a volume concern over Coleman. And I think that's where I would say
the potential ceiling of McMillan is higher.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Coleman has a high ceiling, but a super low floor, and it's very, but I think the volume will favor McMillan this week.
Yeah,
who do I start?
The space he's stepping into is huge.
Yeah, who do I start out of these 2 defenses? Well, I'm on the Chargers defense this week against the Saints, and I don't think that that's realistically a question. Just because the Bengals do have a good offense, whether they put it together for a game, that's to be, a concern. But the Saints don't have a good offense right now. I'm on the Chargers, and I think the Chargers are a nice defense to stream over the next 3 or 4 weeks, for the most part. Do I trade Daniel Jones for Jalen Tolbert? That's an interesting trade, to say the least, Cap. That's a very interesting trade. I think if I have other quarterbacks to look at, I think that I would want to move into the number 2 for Dallas during the home stretch of the season. Do I drop Schultz for Fant? The thing about Fant is Fant's getting a decent.
Where the caps at, bro?
Fant's getting a decent amount of volume going his way. He's very targeted in this offense. They are throwing the ball a lot. I think I'm on Fant over Schultz, but I think that both of these.
That was also this stretch right here was the realistic peak for Schultz, and he didn't do anything with it. So yeah, Schultz is very cuttable.
And as far as the deep dives go, Joe, Smitty, we got you. Dan, Amon, Dylan, Austin. And just so you know, if you do have to go in your deep dives in the queue and we haven't answered it yet, just feel free to come back. Also, feel free to check in as tomorrow as we go through as you rewatch or anything of that nature. So, Alejandro, should I drop Pittman on my bench for Ricky Pearsall, Jerry Jeudy, Tillman, just looking for better upside on my bench in case of injury? I hear what you're saying, Alejandro. And if you're Mr. Wumbo, you will be actively trading Pittman before you drop him. You're going to have to pair him with a decent amount of people. But if I am you, there might be a chance that Pittman might move on as well. And I don't think that Ricky Pearsall, Jerry Jeudy are worth moving out of Pittman to get into. It's a lateral move at best. And Tillman potentially could be a good move. You really just have to pay attention to Cleveland this week, which is not great to say unless you're from Cleveland, and how Jameis Winston uses these two wide receivers, because you'll get a lot of information this week about what the potential is for them.
On that note, I was talking to a guy who lives in Cleveland who said he officially divorced with the Browns, but will never root for anyone in Pittsburgh or Cleveland. So is chosen to adopt the Cardinals because he says he's not worthy enough to respect a good team. He needs to be in another shit ownership group.
People do that. And speaking to Steve's Quicket here, did you see him working at McDonald's? There's a great TikTok about him working at McDonald's. I love the sound bites that we get from that. It's hilarious. Go look it up. It's like Donald Trump working at McDonald's. Hilarious. Start one this week, Carlos. Pollard, Brian Robinson, or Addison. With people saying Daniels out, there's a good chance Mariota is a player who feels like he's been in the league for forever. And he makes a lot of mistakes. He can move the ball. I'm not sure that Mariota against the Bears defense is something that I want to roll Brian Robinson out to, but Brian Robinson can definitely take over a game. So I think out of those three, I'm rolling Brian Robinson this week.
And I'm going Addison.
Yeah, I think it's close for me. That's just my view here on sitting here on Wednesday. Don, you're welcome. Anybody in the chat, feel free to like, follow, subscribe. We will get to every question. Jay,
sure will.
This was one that you asked a little bit earlier. We answered that. I'd rather keep BTJ, Deontay, and White right now. Xenon, full PPR, Kyron, Swift, H.N. Jennings for Derrick Henry and Jahmyr Gibbs. I pick up Olave and Ingram from the waivers, full PPR.
If you can get it through, do it.
I'd do that. I would do that. It trims a lot of fat from your roster, Xenon, and you move into two of the best players in the league while only giving up one of the best players in the league. And HN would be the only question mark that I would have in that deal. Just traded Swift for Bowers. Dude, amazing.
Love it.
Moving into the number one tight end who has literally all of the target share for his team. And, he's been
remember, the Mississippi Mudflat made Pittman a viable target last year. And he made him a top 12 receiver. And you're talking about having a tight end with that kind of volume. Money, you're set, dude. You're so
yeah. And the thing about Bowers, and the reason Bowers is so good, and for anybody, we didn't draft a lot of Bowers heading into the draft at all.
No, we didn't.
But Brock Bowers here this week specifically is expected to score more than what he's already scored in the last couple of weeks. So I would definitely be rolling out Bowers. And I think you're sitting there 2-5, getting Bowers is elite. Team is Allen, HN, JT, Kyron. Yeah, you can definitely move on from Kyron and getting Henry and Gibbs. Then you have Henry, Gibbs, and JT, which are volume, or Henry and JT are volume hogs. Gibbs is an electric running back. You're stacked, dude. You're absolutely stacked. For anybody out there, Z Smitty, we touched on this. For anybody out there holding on to Deontay Johnson, hold the line. Hold the line on Deontay Johnson until he's traded. We saw what happened over the past couple of weeks.
Or till you get a resolution on him getting traded or not.
Do I trade Puka into Debo? I don't. I think it's reasonable, but Debo may be out with pneumonia for 2 weeks. It's fair enough, but I think I'd hold on to the Puka side because Debo doesn't help you win now with his illness. Xenon, does Mahomes and Kelce's value go up after the Hopkins trade?
Yes.
I think Kelce's value goes up but I do still think that Mahomes is a quarterback at the back end of 12-team leagues. That's a personal opinion here. So I don't think it increases the value of Mahomes very much. Incognito, how do we feel about starting players against your own defense? Well, it's kind of like betting, saying somebody's going to win and then betting that a bunch of the other team's players are going to score. I want to start Njoku, but I also want to start the Ravens defense. But here's the thing. If you start Njoku, you can still start Njoku against the Ravens defense because the Ravens defense has nothing to do with how well Njoku is going to do. And I know that's weird to say that. Where the Ravens defense would be affected would be if you were starting Jameis Winston and the Ravens defense. If Njoku goes off for 100 yards and a touchdown, that's probably the only touchdown that they're going to be capable of scoring. So it's not going to hurt the Ravens defense that much. Kyle Pitts, I think, is a better play. But if you want the volume for Njoku, I think that it's a reasonable play for either of those two guys. I would prefer Pitts over Njoku, though. Joe, how do you feel about that?
Yes.
Quick hit here. Trade Deontay.
So, yeah, don't worry about playing a tight end because he's the max value you're going to get for it. It's just the way that it is.
Adam, trade Deontay for D-Hop. No, I'm holding on to Deontay. I think it's reasonable to move into D-Hop, but he's already been hurt. He's been hurt like twice this year.
Where do you have Deontay landing better than the number 1 or number 2 in Kansas City?
Tampa. They lost 2 of their wide receivers.
Even there, I'd rather have Mahomes.
That's where we differ. Cash, quick hit here. Brittle Kittle, as always, should I risk him with the sprain or start Otton this week with no Evans and Godwin? He might get a stupid amount of targets. I agree with you that Otton is probably going to get a stupid amount of targets. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to George Kittle, you're going to know, that game is at night, 8:20. We're not going to know what his health is, but if it's trending like he's looking good up until Friday night, Saturday night, I'd roll out Kittle. But Otton is huge to pass up if that's the case. You have the benefit of waiting until Saturday because at least you don't have the Thursday game. Quincy, start 1 running back and start 3 flex. Debo, MHJ, Pickens, Pop Douglas, Myers, McLaurin, Wandale, Brian Robinson Jr., Bucky Kamara, start 1 super flex, Wilson, May, or Tua. With the Debo illness, I do want to check on that, but I'm under the understanding that Debo's probably not going to play this week. So obviously you can't roll out him or you can't roll him out. I think I'm on Pickens in terms of the wide receivers here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Pickens. If Myers is healthy, I think Myers would be a reasonable play to roll out this week because of a target share. But also, I wouldn't want to start him over McLaurin or Douglas. So I think I choose Pickens, Wandale, and if that is McLaurin, I think I go with McLaurin even with the injury to Daniels. In terms of the running back room, if I'm looking for one running back to start, I think that the running back that I would start, that's it. That one is absolutely a little bit more trickier.
I think it's Bucky.
I think my initial lean would be Bucky because they're going to need to use him. But I think that Rachaad White would get a little bit more over Bucky in that game script.
Now, see, I think your strategy for Tampa in that game is to straight run it, and not have to throw it as much. And White is the one who loses out in that situation. So,
and that's fair. That's my initial lean there. I think if Debo's out, I'd do Pickens, McLaurin, Wandale, and then I'd go, my opinion at running back, I would still roll out Brian Robinson Jr. And then for the super flex position, my lean is Tua. Joe's lean is Wilson. So take that for what it's worth, Quincy.
For just one of them in super flex, it would be Tua for this week. Season long, it would be Wilson.
Jonathan, do I play Javonte Williams over Brian Robinson or over Dobbins? I think I'm playing Dobbins. Denver looked really good with Javonte this past week. The Panthers are not a great team. They don't do a lot of things well on defense. So it would be reasonable to play Javonte Williams. I think what we saw over the last couple of weeks is Dobbins has a really high ceiling, but his floor is also really, really low. So Javonte Williams is the same thing. If Javonte Williams is catching passes out of the backfield, that's going to be great, but they might not have to do that against the Panthers. Dobbins will be a hammer as the game goes on. They're just going to keep hammering Dobbins over and over and over again later into that game. I think I'm on Dobbins. I think that Dobbins can easily clear 100 yards this week.
Likewise.
Will Kittle play this week? We don't know. If he doesn't play this week, Juwan Jennings to the moon, guys.
Juwan Jennings to the moon regardless.
But we'll know more about Kittle come Friday.
Kittle's playing.
Again, Thursday injury reports need to come out in order to figure that out. Who should I start, Xenon, in terms of these? I'm starting Allen. I know that, Mahomes feels like a better play, but I'm starting Allen. The rushing upside is there. Mahomes does have a little bit of rushing upside too, but the Raiders game will probably be finished by halftime, and then we know that Mahomes will probably not be as involved in that game. As it comes to the running back room here, Kyren is definitely a start for me, but also to consider that Minnesota has a pretty good run defense. But also at that same point in time, I think that Kyren is worth playing. If JT plays, I haven't heard any news today. I've been at work all day about the Colts. I think that would be a reasonable play this week. But I would try to get that Achane trade done today so that I'm not worried about starting Kyren or Achane at all. And then in terms of that wide receiver market there, Xenon, Jettis and Amon-Ra are huge plays this week, and so is A.J. Brown. Tyreek
so
could be electric as well.
Tyreek's your flex.
I think if I could roll out 3 wide receivers from that, it's Jettis, Amon, AJ, and then Tyreek flex, and then out of the tight ends, I think for you with the injury to Kittle, I think maybe Kelce would be the play over Kittle in your if you're worried about that. MT, I traded Tyreek Hill for 2 first-round picks, 26, 27 Superflex Dynasty. I'm 1-6 rebuilding. MT, that's a great decision because Tyreek, while he's electric, you're trading him for a first-round pick in 2026, then 2027. You're getting that draft capital that you can then flip that for better picks this year if you want, or better picks in the next year if you want as well. There's going to be a lot of good college players coming out over the next 2 years. You can see college ball. The offensive side of the game is really, really humming right now. I'd even try to flip maybe one of those first-round picks this year or the 2027, the 2026 or the 2027 plus somebody else, to potentially move into a first-round pick this year as well. I know MT, you have a lot of first-round picks coming up, and I think that will be really good for you. Aiden, we don't know. Again, we don't know. If you're with Kittle, I think it's important to look at the Thursday report and the Friday report because the Wednesday and Tuesday reports can kind of be rest days for a lot of players. So that's something to keep in mind.
That's true.
You're good. Yeah, I figured, Smitty, that you were leaning towards Dell after we were talking about Flowers. And it's fair to lean Dell because the Colts, have struggled in terms of defense, and they don't hold on to the ball that much. If JT plays, they might hold on to the ball a little bit better. Dell's a really hard thing to go about, especially when I'm holding on the Flowers. They both have a very poor floor, but also a decently high ceiling. 10-team PPR D-Wave. Start 1 quarterback. Dak, Purdy, or Tua. Going off our list for this week, we have Purdy. So going off the list this week, we have Purdy. Yep. D-Wave. Didn't quite get Devonta Adams for Wilson like I wanted, but I got off of Wilson for Kupp and D-Hop last week. Excellent. I mean, you moved into D-Hop before the trade happened. It's paying dividends already. We love Cooper Kupp here on Local Football Flavor. Xenon, where do you think Kupp will be traded? Sure do. Keeping him quick hit. So the things that I've heard speculating is that Mike Williams might come to the Steelers, and either Cooper Kupp or Deontay will go down to Tampa.
That's not happening.
That's what I've heard. When we look at the other teams in the league that may need wide receiver help, The bottom barrel teams probably aren't doing much of anything. You may.
Well, let's put it this way: if the Rams win this week, Kupp's not getting traded.
If the Rams win, he might not. And
I mean, I got to put that out there outright.
To that end, Kupp said, in interviews and stuff recently, that he is where his feet are, and I love that answer. He is where his feet are, so he can't tell you anything else, and I love that answer for him. I like McBride, but I think that McBride has a good amount of the target share there. Versus the
Dolphins. Does.
But I think I still start Komet.
I'm going Komet this week too.
I still start Komet. Pollard or JT? JT rest of the season, Adam.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
Lots of good things to think about with JT. Don't give up on JT yet. What? That's absurd, Steve. That is absolutely absurd. There's no.
Why do you guys care about kickers?
Because he's a top four kicker. I mean,
who cares?
It's worth it. All right. Nick, trade MHJ for Waddle or stick with the rookie the rest of the season. I mean, there's reason to believe that I think Waddle has a similar output as MHJ. It just depends on what team you believe in.
Yeah, Nick, in a redraft format, I would actually, in this situation, roll my dice on Tua's health than I would on Arizona becoming smart. Because that's basically what the question is. What's more likely to happen? Arizona coaching staff figures things out or Tua stays healthy? Neither one's likely, but I'm more likely to go with Tua. So that's how I would look at that.
And Dom, I think both these guys are going to score touchdowns this week. But the only thing that I would caution on what I mentioned about Chase Brown earlier is that could be a negative game script for the Bengals against Philadelphia. And Chase Brown is not the best pass blocker. So just thinking that in consideration, but he is the best coming out of the backfield if they want to have a chance to win. But at the same point in time, I think my initial lean on Wednesday here is Brian Robinson still. We'll put this in the deep dive queue here. They'll make him run the ball 20. Yeah, this is exactly when we were mentioning Kareem Hunt. They'll make him run that ball into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
They do not care. And they would rather have Pacheco be healthy.
For the playoffs, yeah.
So, Jesse, I think we answered this one. It really depends on which angle you lean here. I do think Otton is going to get a lot of carries. I'm leaning Otton a little bit more versus the Otton Njoku kind of play. George, welcome back. We're doing really good. Kicker question here. Stick with the Tampa kicker or drop him for the Vikings kicker. The Vikings kicker is really good. The Vikings
Thursday Night Football, though.
Really good. Thursday Night Football can get really weird. Sometimes it can get spicy. I think with the way that this offense could look for Tampa Bay, that I'd be nervous trotting out McLaughlin. I think I'm going with the Vikings kicker. I think that the Vikings kicker has a floor of 4 points, but a ceiling of 13 points or higher. So I'm going with Reichert. Living in Miami, still waiting for it to happen. Yep.
Caps. I don't like that you turned your caps off. It makes me sad.
Abraham just traded Jacobs, Javonte, and Ladd for Jonathan Taylor and Zay Flowers. Got Lamar, K9, Kyron, JJ, Zay, JT. Kittle is my starters now. Dobbs, Lockett, Ridley, Keenan, Goddard on my bench. I think this is a win. I think it's going to be a long-term win. Jacobs is a high floor guy. He's involved on a really good offense. He's a hammer. I like him a lot. Javonte, I can go either way on. Statistically speaking, he's had one really, really good game. The other games have been
I think you traded Javonte at the perfect point, dude. I think you want. The only thing I wish I could have kept was Ladd, but getting Zay back, I accept.
I really like that, Abraham. Currently 6-1. It's even better. You're playing for the long scope. You're playing for the long term. Love that. George played also. Roquan Smith got me 16 points, Joe. Roquan Smith is a dog. He
tackles everything.
Dog. The fact that
here's a side thing, because tackles mean so much for IDP. It is proven that of all of the statisticians across all 32 teams, the most liberal in giving out assisted tackles is Baltimore's. Every person who plays in Baltimore gets their season high in tackles.
You're welcome, Incognito. We're almost caught up on the quick hits, and then we'll get to the deep dives. We're making up time. RG, I fall on this one. I think you got a good deal if you were looking for a quarterback, but I just want to communicate that I still think that Mahomes is a back-end QB1 to a non-starter in a 12-team quarterback.
And RG, I would not have done that at all because I think Kraft is I think Kraft is closer to a mirage than a thing.
And we can deep dive that if you want to, RG. I saw a couple more questions from
you in the
chat. We'll get to those as well. I got offered Puka and Reed for Amon-Ra. Should I accept it? I already have London, but lost Godwin and Ayuk. This is a fair trade.
That is a fair trade.
If you've stuck with us a long time, this would be the type of trade that we would tell you to try to put together for Amon-Ra.
You kind of need the volume. You kind of need to do it.
I would.
Yeah.
I would.
Had you not lost Ayuk, I think I would not do it. But since you did,
yeah. Doug, I think there's a lot of good things that could come from this trade. We could deep dive it if you're still here a little bit later. But I think that having again with Jaden Reed and anybody going out there to get Jaden Reed right now, he's a slot guy on an offense that passes the ball and runs the ball really well. They're going to score points. It might not always be through Jaden Reed, but he projects really well as we go through the season. Amon-Ra is a player that is electric, and with JMO out, will get more opportunities. But Puka is that kind of piece with his window opening up. If there's no setbacks, man, it will be nice to roll out Drake, London, Puka, and Reed on a week-to-week basis because you have a really high ceiling at that point. And, moving forward, we're shooting for those high ceilings. Big Mac, good to see you back again. Would you package 2 out of DJ Moore, Brian Thomas, and Olave to get Debo? If so, which 2? I wouldn't package 2. Olave's trade value is really low. I do get that right now because of the injury and the quarterback concern. I would, and right now, DJ Moore will help you more than Debo if Debo's out. If Debo didn't have this injury concern, I'd say trade DJ Moore and Olave. But with the pneumonia,
I still think that's the answer. I would still do it.
With the pneumonia, I'm not sure it needs to be done this week, though. Right?
Oh, I don't think you're getting it another week. I think this is why you're getting it right now.
Well, you might get DJ Moore to have another blow-up game.
I don't trust that. I trust him to completely implode. He's a bear. I want to trade DJ Moore the second I got him.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, he's not projected to score well this week, so I mean,
I would do DJ. Keeping Brian Thomas was the answer, though.
Yeah, I would definitely keep Brian Thomas, Big Mac.
I would absolutely, Mark, do this trade. Give me Tyreek.
Mark, I'd do that going forward, but just understand, like we've said a lot of times with Tua, he's not going to wear the Guardian helmet. There's going to be some, if he's not there again, then Tyreek's value goes down again. But again, you're getting the best player in that deal.
I already know Garrett Wilson's down.
Do I send Garrett Wilson for Nico Collins first, or try something like Mixon and Reed for CMC and Nico? CMC owner wants a startable running back. If the CMC owner has Nico, we talked a little bit yesterday, and if you wanted to go back, there was somebody looking to go after CMC as well. I think it's a little much to go and trade Mixon and Reed for CMC and Nico. The headspace is right, but I think that I
just
would
make it Mixon and Wilson, and I think you're fine.
Yeah, I think that they'll be wanting to do that, but maybe, you might not want to move on from Mixon right now. I would start with Bigsby first. If I were moving it, I'd do Bigsby and Wilson and seeing if they'd bite and seeing if they'd ask you for Mixon, because a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about CMC. Some people want to get rid of him. Some people don't. So Jackson, if that's me, I'm starting with Bigsby and saying that, I'm willing and open for counter offers. And saying, I'll give you Garrett Wilson and Bigsby for CMC and Nico. If he needs startable players right now, he'll probably do that. You're welcome, Cap. Anybody in the chat, if you're in the chat right now,
love the Caps are back.
We are catching up on all the quick hits, and we will get to all the deep dives. I dropped Richardson before I dropped Pittman, and no one picked up Richardson in a 1 QB 12-team league. Yeah, nobody's.
That's right.
I mean, I know we talked a couple weeks back about going out there and picking up Richardson, but again, Richardson has no value right now to most people out there. And the only people that he has value to are for the people that can't get over the fact that they drafted him in the 4th or 5th round. Nick,
which you shouldn't have done in the first place.
with Dobbins, Bijan, and Pollard as my running backs, am I set for the rest of the season? Nick, these 3 running backs are solid options. Bijan is a number 1 running back. He could end up as the running back 2 overall with the way Derrick Henry's playing. That's the only reason I say maybe not the running back 1 overall. Bijan is a great player on a team that seems to realize now that Bijan is a valuable asset. Dobbins is one of those players that, although he does have a chance to get injured, has a definitive role, even with all those injuries to the other running backs there. The team's not going to score a lot of points, but he does have a definitive role. Pollard, you could go either way about Pollard. Pollard is a solid starter right now. If anything, I think that if you wanted to move on from Pollard or build off of Pollard, that would be the spot that I would work on. Mm-hmm. Should I drop Laporta for Henry, Ferguson, Freiermuth, Otten, Crafter, Hill? I wouldn't. As Joe said earlier in the episode, with this 2-game suspension to JMO, they're going to have to use Laporta more. They're going to have to use him more. It's a definitive fact. I wouldn't drop Laporta. And if I were going to make Laporta, if I was going to drop Laporta, I'd trade him before I dropped him. The McDonald's.
If anyone could, man.
Work. But I will say this. They can throw out food way faster than a Wendy's can. So I don't know. You can put it in the chat if you want to. The way the McDonald's drive-thru operates, even though there's still only one person taking orders, they are way more efficient than Wendy's. And the order of efficiency definitely goes Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, and Wendy's, where we live.
With KFC far in the bottom.
KFC is far at the bottom. I'm not even going to get started on KFC. Xenon, JT, Kittle, and AJ Brown or Kupp for CD and Saquon, full PPR. The other team needs these positions. If I could move JT, Kittle, and Kupp for CD and Saquon, I'd do that. I'd start there.
Yeah, Brown's the one you keep out of the or situation for sure.
Yeah, I'd rather keep AJ Brown, Xenon, but I'd do a trade like that. For those of you moving in or out of JT right now, this is a trade in a super league like Xenon's in that you could potentially get into. I'd rather trade off Kupp in that situation. Brown is a stud.
That's right.
Kupp is a stud too, but Brown is a stud right now, and he's going to keep his role no matter what.
That's right.
You're welcome, Incognito. We're going to start the deep dive soon, Smitty. We want to clear up. We're almost at the end of the queue of these quick hits. And Smitty, if you do have to go, just tune in. We will get to the deep dive. Paolo, who should I flex? Tankdale, Wandale, Sutton, Odunze, Najee, or Sutton? This week, we're not flexing Sutton. It's reasonable to think that he should have a good enough game, but
I think Sutton could blow it up.
Temper those expectations. Odunze, we're not starting. We're not starting Odunze this week. Najee, realistically, Joe, I know what our stats are putting out there, and I know it's not looking great for Najee this week. But he does definitely have a decent chance viably. But I think that I'd go Wandale. Out of that group of players, I think that my vote would go towards Wandale, with Sutton and Tank Dell being close behind in second place there. And that's on Wednesday today, Joe. Where do you lean on that one?
My order would be Sutton, Wandale, Najee, Dell.
Mm-hmm. And that's fair. That's fair. And Odunze, you didn't even list. Evan, would you trade Marvin Harrison and Tyrone Tracy for DK and Bigsby? Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely, I would do that. Even with DK's injury. DK's a player to move into right now. We don't know the true extent of the injury. I'll look it up really quickly.
And Evans, you're also selling Tracy at a high point because, like I said, his value is going to go down with Neighbors back. Mm-hmm. And I don't think most people are aware of that. So getting rid of him at a good value point,
he's weak
and sliding into DK and Bigsby,
I'd still move into him. RG, start Purdy or Mahomes and McBride or Kraft this week. Out of your tight ends, I believe the choice between Tucker, Kraft, and McBride is a straight even choice kind of, but I'm going to lean McBride on that one. And as it goes to Purdy and Mahomes, we have Mahomes ranked a little bit ahead of Purdy, but at the same time, Purdy we think will be more capable of hitting a higher floor or a higher ceiling than Mahomes this week. So we're going to rock Purdy on that one. Alex, should I trade Kupp and Chuba for Gibbs? I would, especially if, they want to give work to Brooks on the back end. And I understand wanting to keep Chuba especially if they trade Deontay Johnson, but Thielen will come back. There will be receivers there. It is a low hanging fruit, but I want to move into Gibbs. Move into Gibbs. Paolo, we answered that question. So if you're still in the chat, we got you on that one. KJ, we're going to add you to the deep dive queue there. Mondo, should I trade Jaden Reed for James Cook? My running backs are Aaron Jones, Hunt, Mason, Pacheco. Wide receivers are Jefferson, Tyreek, Odunze, Shakir, Lazard. I wouldn't.
I do Odunze instead of Reed because I think you can get it through with Odunze.
I don't think you could trade Odunze for Cook straight up. That would be crazy. But
you have to put Lazard then.
I think you can move. I think what I would do is I would move Mason and Lazard into Cook or something of that nature. If you
I'm not moving Mason. I'm moving 2 receivers. But I just want to keep Reed is what I'm saying.
That's fine. I do want to keep Reed as well. I wouldn't do that trade. Phil, should I trade Aaron Jones, Devonta Smith for Najee and Debo? I wouldn't. Debo out of all those players does have the highest ceiling, but also in that same respect, I do think the Devonta Smith and Aaron Jones will put up more points between the two of them over the entirety of the season, especially even considering injuries. So I'm on Aaron Jones, Devonta Smith, Phil. Quick hit here. Would you still play Addison over Tank if ETN is out? Addison target share hasn't been great, and Hawk is coming back. That is true. I think that Tank is reasonable. The only thing about Tank, Dylan, that isn't in his favor is when the game gets into obviously passing, Tank probably isn't going to see the field a whole lot. So Jacksonville coming back from over the pond is going to have to keep this game tight, and I don't think they're going to be able to do that. So while Hawk coming back does play into Addison's overall target share, just go back to the 2023 numbers a little bit for Addison when all 3 of those players are in there. Although it is a different quarterback situation, I think I'm still leaning Addison over Tank, but I could definitely see both of having a similar player point production when the week is over. I don't think they're going to be too far off in their end game points when it comes down to it. But I don't like the script for Tank Bigsby. Johnny, should I trade Najee and Debo for Aaron Jones and Devonta Smith?
We just had that, didn't we?
Phil, are Phil and Johnny in the same chat? I love it. We have finally come across 2 guys in the same league, in the same chat. Love
in the same trade.
Love this. You heard my opinion about Aaron Jones and Devonta Smith. You guys can hash that out as you will, Phil and Johnny. But I would rather have Aaron Jones and Devonta Smith.
That's right.
The optics are really good for Najee moving forward, but I do think that Aaron Jones and Devonta Smith will put up a lot more points. In replacing Justin Fields, do I pick up Tua or Russ on waivers? I'm concerned about Tua's injury history. I think you should be concerned about Tua's injury history, Nick.
But the fact you can pick them both up, go for the one who gives you the bigger home run today, which is Tua.
Yep, agree. Love it, Phil. Love it, Phil. You heard what we said. I think you guys can hash that out. There's reason to say that the trade is fair enough, but I do think that Aaron Jones and Devonta Smith will.
I think if you want to get that trade through realistically, guys, you got to up the value of Najee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Zai, Puka's
and
back.
The answer here, Z, is drop Downs because McMillan's world just improved.
Yeah. Downs is garbage unless Joe Flacco's in.
Hey, Wumbo, are you in the Midwest? Because I feel like you know everything about the Colts.
Hey, Nick. Smitty, we're going to get to you. We're going to give that deep dive a chance. We have you. It was the first question. We did answer Jackson's from yesterday, so we have not forgotten about you. Robert, we are still live. Smitty, we are clearing up the quick hits, okay? So Max here, We are going to save yours, and we're going to get to Smitty
Yeah,
right
Bob,
now.
I normally do stop after 20 minutes of quick hits and do a deep dive.
That's fair.
This is like you have the steering wheel instead of me.
So, Smitty, we got you on this one, Smitty. So, if we are looking at your team, we have Love, Gibbs, Bijan, JJ, Drake, McBride, Jacobs, Chubb, BTJ, Terry, Worthy, Deontay, Amari. Should I trade Terry and Jacobs for Brees? The record is 4-3 at the moment. It's a 10-team league. Or should I sit tight? Last place guy is looking to trade a running back. He has Brees and Mixon. Maybe getting another stud in my lineup could be good. Problem is, I'd have to do a lot of week 12 buys. And I play him week 12 as well. With that said, a starting lineup of Love, Brees, Bijan, JJ, Drake, McBride, and Gibbs could be an absolute league winner.
Could be.
You are in the right frame of mind here, Smitty. I think that where I fall on this is looking at those bye weeks and looking at you're sitting here at
Smitty, I'm going to give an answer that's going to be different than Bob.
Yeah, Joe,
I look at your record. I want to eat all of my buys at once. Your record should be stacked enough to make the 1 week loss not matter. So we look at what that team would be. I would go for it and just accept that you're losing week 12. That's a cost of doing business. But at the end of the day, no one cares what you do 12. They care what you do in your championship. And of a starting point. So I would go with that being the answer of doing that. Go for the gusto. Go for the win, Smitty. That's what I would say to do with that. No doubt. To me, that's a no doubt. I think it's a great decision. I like how you laid it out. That was awesome. So while we're here, obviously Bob neglected you guys deep dives. Now that I got the steering wheel again, I'm going to jump in a couple of you guys here, and then we'll hit up all the quick hitters after we get a couple of deep dives here. So Jackson, we did yours from yesterday to start off the show. Dan, pick 2 to start from the following half PPR options: Javonte Williams, Olave, Bigby, Coleman, Purcell, Tillman, or Kraft. Let me start here, man. You have the opportunity to move Javonte Williams after his season blip. There's not going to be a better spot and or time to move Javonte Williams. So what I am going to say as a starting point, trade him. He's not going to be one of the start of those two anyway. So I'm saying move him, get something better. I'm fine with Pearsall as a long-term hold. I don't think you're going to get any form of immediate value, though, unless either Jennings goes down or Debo is out. He is slated, both body type and everything else, to be Debo's replacement. So if Debo's out this week, you can make a reasonable maybe. I just wouldn't want to do it. So, Bob, recapping my answer to Dan here. Trade Javonte Williams at the peak of his power.
My response to Smitty here first.
Okay? All right, my bad.
Before
I love what he did. All I can say was, yes, he's awesome.
So, Smitty, where I'm at on your trade here, Z, is that I do want to go out and get Brees Hall.
Yeah, do the trade. Yeah.
When it comes down to it, you're looking here. You got a lot going on in week 12. That is absolutely true. And it is nice to think about playing him in week 12. But what I'm thinking about more so is all of the other games. Okay? When we look at all of the other games, if he has Terry and Jacobs in week 12, I would want to look at those matchups, right? And I'm going to do it right now because you did wait a fair bit of time here. I'm going to look at Terry McLaurin's matchup. I'm going to look at Jacobs' matchup specifically in week 12. And we see that in week 12, the Commanders play Dallas, which is a good enough matchup for him. And then in week 12 as well, Josh Jacobs is sitting there and playing against San Francisco. So it's not like a world beater matchup for Jacobs in regards to that. So even with Terry McLaurin there, I think that you're easily winning this trade. And this is the type of trade that when you get this done and it makes your team logistically a lot better. Now, while I do think, you're sitting here saying to yourself, well, maybe I want to go after Joe Mixon. Then it comes down to saying, okay, well, what matchups look better for the playoffs? Because I'm assuming your playoffs are week 15, 16, 17, somewhere along those lines. And we know that when it comes to the end of the season here, the Jets play a warm weather game in Jacksonville. Then they go out to LA, and then they play week 17 at Buffalo. All of those games project really well for Breece Hall. All of them. So logistically speaking, if I can go out there right now and I can move Jacobs, who's a solid running back 2, back end running back 1, and Terry, who's a solid wide receiver 2, into a player that over the past 2 weeks has been a top 10 running back scoring over 20 points. We got to think that what happened with Salah, and we got to also think that the rain game, the torrential downpour in Denver in week 4, was not necessarily equative of what his skill set is as a player. So going out there and getting him right now is electric. It makes your team leaps and bounds better. Leaps and bounds better. So to Dan's question here, starting 2 from the following options, half PPR. Unfortunately, I don't think Chris Olave is worth a look this week. Maybe coming up soon. I don't think he's worth a look this week. Keon Coleman's production, I think, will be limited by the more Amari Cooper gets, the more boom Keon Coleman would be. So I think Keon Coleman could potentially be a good boom over this week and over the next couple of weeks as well. Javonte Williams is one of those players I believe Joe would have communicated to you that is worth trading right now.
Yes.
If you haven't traded off of Javonte Williams yet, there's reason to say that game will be his best game all season.
Yeah, move Williams and Kraft in a 2-for-1 combo, man. Get some wins.
If you can, but just this week, if I'm just picking 2 in terms of a half PPR, I don't know how much Javonte Williams will be used in the passing game this week, because I do think the Broncos are going to play with a lead. And I don't think that with that lead that they will necessarily use Javonte Williams that much. I'll have to look into it a little bit more for tomorrow, Dan, but I do think that he's not on my radar this week. So this kind of rolls into then picking 2 between Bigsby, Coleman, Pearsall, Tillman, and Kraft. And I just don't think that I could flex a tight end, realistically speaking. So I think it would be, it's really tough. But
see, to me, this is easy. This is Bigsby and Coleman.
The Browns are going to be playing from behind a lot in this game. Jameis Winston might throw the ball like 30, 40 times.
And complete about 12 of them.
Yeah. So, I do think it's Bigsby and Coleman, but Coleman is still going to have limited opportunities. That's just very clear, Dan, is that he's not a player that's going to get seven receptions a game. He's going to be limited to 3-4 receptions a game. And whatever you get out of him, maybe it's 40 yards, maybe it's 125 yards like last week. He has when he catches the ball, he has a really good ADOT, just to be honest with you. So, that's something to consider with Keon Coleman. And
he rips them big when he does it. Yeah.
The idea, the presence of Amari Cooper allows that deep threatness to be kind of an option on the table again. And so Tank Bigsby and Coleman are reasonable to believe that those 2 will be the most successful out of this grouping. But again, I really don't like Tank this week. I'm going to say it. I'm playing Tank out of necessity because I lost Evans.
I like Tank this week. I get your whole thing about them coming back from the pond, but
I don't really like Tank. Let's clear up a couple more of these DDs, Joe, as we go through. We'll definitely get to those, Smitty, KJ.
So this is going to be our last DD, Dylan, and then we're going to limit it to 15 minutes of quick hitters at most. So the DD list, obviously, Amaz up now. After that, we Dylan, Austin, and Jesse.
And then
we
KJ.
we will answer all of them before we log out today. Probably looking around 6-ish, right, Bob?
Yeah. So let's get through a lot of these DDs, and we're going to be on tomorrow around 3:45 to around 6-ish again. So maybe 5:30 on Thursdays. I know Joe has to leave to go to axe throwing, I believe. So right. DD, I got offered DK, Monty, and Javonte for Reed and Hunt. I'm 1-6 and need to win now, so I'm hesitant since we don't know how much time DK will miss. DK's dealing with the MCL. He's definitely not playing this week. I do like.
You need to win now. You need to keep Reed and Hunt.
I do like the idea of getting Monty, but Reed and Hunt give you the chance to win now. And just let's just framework this a little bit, Joe, and talk about why is Hunt worth owning right now? Why is he worth owning right now?
Hunt's worth owning because he's prior to this hop, which I don't think is going to really affect this week. The Chiefs are a running defense team. I know they have the best quarterback in the world, and it doesn't seem like that, but they are. There's also wide swaps of the Patriots time that Brady was the best quarterback in the world, and they were a running defense team. That's kind of how they're set up right now. So you're going to get the opportunities. Hopkins does give them a legit red zone threat that I think that's why they went out to get him more so than anything else. The Juju doesn't provide the way that Rice does. So Hunt is going to be in a situation where the offense is going to improve. Total points are going up. Total yardage is going up. And long story short, they're going to have a lot of games. They're just going to run the damn ball out. They are a favorite, I think, in every game for the rest of the year. So they're going to have plenty of just run the ball out, run the ball out, run the ball out. Him and Henry have that advantage more than anyone else. We see what King Henry's doing with it, and Hunt's doing the same thing. The only reason we're worried about Hunt is Pacheco coming back. But again, I don't see a reason for them to have to rush Pacheco back because they know they're winning their division. And unless they're in a spot where they're playing for the 1 seed at the end of the year, which would be against either one of their 2 division games or the Steelers, none of which are probably going to be fighting them for the 1 seed, you're probably not pushing Pacheco back until, I don't know, week 17 at earliest. And you don't need to, so you won't. That's why Hunt has value, and there's just no way around it. Now, Monty gives you incredible value too, but you don't want to pick up 2 garbage assets, particularly Javonte Williams, and an injured DK when you need to win now. If you want to rework this trade and while it down to Monty and Hunt, you should get a little bit more than just Monty back. But I would understand that. I do not want to get rid of Reed under any circumstances.
Yeah, and I would totally agree with you on that, Joe. You know, when we look at Kareem Hunt, he is one of those runners that gets a lot of his carries. You know, he's not really getting a lot of yards before contact, and he's not really getting a lot of yards after contact. But he's still one of those players that is, being used successfully in all parts of the field, right? And so I don't want to limit myself and say, okay, what is his realistic floor in a game? And if he doesn't score the touchdowns, I understand, and that goes for any running back, realistically speaking, as we talk here on Wednesday. Javonte's one of those players that absolutely his value is tied to his pass catching ability. He could be a good runner, but the Broncos aren't really necessarily a great team that will utilize that running skill all the time. And they also have other weapons, and the coaches said that they want to get those other weapons involved. And so if opportunities come, that will come. Hunt definitely is a candidate that is worth trading, but Amon, for you, I think that if I am moving Reed and Hunt, that, like Joe said, you can't move into an injured asset like DK. You can't move into an injured asset like Debo. You need to win the next 2 games at the very minimum, I think, to even make and start thinking about a playoff push. And what I know about your team is pretty solid for all intents and purposes. And so if I need to win now, Reed and Hunt still give me the opportunity to win now. Like, there's nothing wrong with Reed and Hunt right now. I think, I'm sticking tight, but I would try to propose a deal for Monty. I think that I would still want to propose a deal for Montgomery. I don't know. I'd have to take a look at your team again, but I think I would still want to move into Montgomery.
So, Bob, why don't we do a couple quick hitters real quick here,
and
then we'll dive into the final stretch of
the deep dives coming up next.
Yeah, the final deep dives when we wrap this up will be Dylan, Austin, Jesse, and KJ.
All right, so let's
do a wave of quick
hitters here. Let's scroll up here. Joe, I have to scroll up pretty far in here right now. Mad Max, would you trade BTJ, who's a round 7 keeper, for DJ Moore and James Cook? I wouldn't. I need to trade 2 of my running backs for a wide receiver if that were the case. I would keep, I think right now, with what you have here in terms of like keepers, Palmer's value is not super high right now, and neither is Downs. You're looking at your running back room, and you've got a lot of depth and a lot of future depth, depending on how these teams play out. I would rather keep BTJ, but knowing the structures of your keepers, Max, would be really important as well. So if you do 2 rounds up every year, BTJ is still worth a keep next year, I think. Because right now he's like wide receiver 8 on the year in terms of fantasy, really buoyed by a really blow up game, but he does have long-term potential. And DJ Moore's potential could look really good, but I think the player that I'd want to own from the Bears if I were in a keeper league or a dynasty league would be Odunze for future value. So James Cook still has a lot of future value, but I'm still on BTJ. I wouldn't do that. How about you, Joe?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with that, Bob. You're right.
Yeah, dude. Like, this is the thing. Like, I mean, like the McDonald's just works. McDonald's just works. The 5-cent raise after year. In our current economy, raises are garbage. And if you get a raise, it's nice. If you don't, it's like, well, what am I working for? So Nick, it's good to see you as well. Smitty, we got to your question. If you're with us, you can go back. If you didn't tune in, we answered it probably about 10, 15 minutes ago. Robert.
That's right.
As it goes here, we are still live. And Robert, I would go Aaron Jones.
Yep.
I know.
That's right.
I know it's tough to bench Cook, but I'm on Aaron Jones. He does a lot.
And guys, the way we do this is if you want a deep, long answer, put a DD in front of your comment. If not, we're going to treat it as a quick hitter. That we will answer everyone's questions, but this is how we go about it to honor everyone's time and desire.
And sometimes
so we answer this one a couple times.
Go back in the video to watch.
CC, I'm on Laporta for this one.
CC, if you watched if you caught anything earlier, I was on Otten, Joe's on Laporta, but I can easily be swayed to Laporta for all the reasons Joe said. With Jameson Williams being out, the targets have opened up for Laporta, but Otten will be a target hog this week, or should be. So just consider all of that information as you make the decision. They're both reasonable plays this week. Darnell Mooney or Shakir the rest of the season.
See, you're in question town. For me, this is a no-brainer. Darnell Mooney's value is increasing. Shakir's value is decreasing. I'm on Mooney for the rest of the year. And they started relatively at the same spot.
And Nihil, I do agree with Joe in the respect that Mooney's situation, while Bijan has gotten more play, I don't think Mooney's role has changed, and I don't think it will change. And for Shakir, I do not think his role will change. But to Joe's point, if Allen's not passing the ball a lot, it will have ramifications on all the pass catchers for Buffalo, especially if he decides to get all those pass catchers involved. So I do swing towards the Mooney side, but it's closer than Joe makes it. What do we think of Chase Brown rest of the season? Well, at the beginning of the season, in the offseason, we had Zach Moss projected to be really, really high finishing in the season.
I still do when Moss is healthy.
With Chase Brown potentially taking on a role in games where they're up or not passing as much, they do have some games coming down the pipeline, Joe, if I'm not mistaken, where they could be leading outside of this game against the Eagles, which they're probably not. They're going to be leading against the Raiders. They're going to be leading. They're probably not going to be leading against the Ravens. Coming
Cincinnati's
back down,
in trouble, dude.
Chargers,
And their
they're probably
offense
gonna
has
be
been
leading.
down the last 2 weeks. But Chase Brown has been a consistent force within it. So I'm not running to buy him, but I'm also not running to sell him. I want to see where this shakes out, because there's potential this thing goes well for them, but there's also potential that they turn the whole thing and implode it. The key with Cincinnati is they're not mathematically eliminated. They're close-ish. But the reality is, if they're ever going to perform, it has to be all offensive based. So with the exception of Higgins, I'm big on all of them for the rest of the season. And the reason I'm not big on Higgins is I think he's going to crap out for a contract.
Right now, Chase Brown sits as the 25th running back in terms of fantasy points in the season. Realistically speaking, there's a good chance that he still finishes within the top 20 by the end of the season.
Yeah, he's not going to go much above 15, though.
Nihil. Ken Walker 3 and Mooney for Cook and Bucky. I'm the Cook side. I know Joe will tell you not to really give up on Bucky there, but KW3 is really, really awesome. The only way I would do this trade, Nihil,
is I want Walker.
Wide receiver.
Yeah, I want the Walker on this trade.
If I needed a wide receiver, I would do that trade. This is the type of deal that moves you into Cook that moves you into KW. I think it's fair. If I need a wide receiver, I would go with the Mooney side. Tyler, Ferguson or Otten this week? Really good question. Joe, where do you fall on that one?
I'm pulling up here where we got Fergie right now. My answer is going to be Ferguson. I think there's going to be a shootout when it's all said and done, and he's their number 2. There's no way around it.
Yeah, and Tyler, just as you know, we do answer every question. So if you don't hear your answer right away there, we see you. We'll get to every question. And I tend to lean Ferguson on that one as well. But again, the situation with Otten is very reasonable to say that he could go off for 6 to 7 touches for 80 or so yards. I think Ferguson has a similar-ish ceiling. So I think that both will be good plays this week. My initial lean here on Wednesday would be Ferguson. Nihil, Josh Jacobs and Mooney or Shakir for Cook and Bucky. I'd rather have Ken Walker. I know Ken Walker, if you could get Ken Walker and Mooney, I like that deal a lot. But if you're looking to move out, if you're looking to move into Josh Jacobs due to the floor, again, what you need to think about with Ken Walker and Josh Jacobs is that they're being used differently. But Ken Walker is one of those guys, because Seattle has been passing the ball a lot, the amount of times that they've needed to run the game has been limited. He's also missed 2 games. Josh Jacobs missed, I don't think he missed any time, but he had Malik Willis as a quarterback for a little bit. So you look at them, they are going to be running the ball between 14 to 20 times a game, both of these teams. I trust the floor of Jacobs, but I also like the ceiling of Ken Walker. So I'm on Ken Walker and Mooney in that trade if I'm getting anything, Nihil. Wumbo lives in New England. We're supposed to.
It did. I saw that. That was interesting.
Manning stuff. CC, Flowers or Devonta Smith rest of the season. Neither will produce on these run offenses. Again, both of them.
I don't know if that's true. I think both of them are going to give you up and down. I'm bigger on Devontae for the rest of the year. But I do think Flowers is about to get fed incredibly a lot.
Incredibly a lot. I think that we're going to normalize back into a Devonta Smith. As we've said earlier, Devonta Smith is not the hammer on this team. So when push comes to shove, if the Eagles start losing, Devonta Smith is going to be a player that's pretty much not going to be seen on the field, or he's going to be seen on the field, but he's not going to be getting logistically a lot of targets. Jalen Hurts only threw the ball 14 times last week. If Saquon is running the way he was running again, that could be problematic. But both of those players, like you said,
Well, they're not going to be playing the Giants every week. It won't be that easy.
I'm on Zay. I think I'm on Zay, but it's close. It's close right there. Jack, should I start Njoku or McBride? I'm a little stuck. I'm starting McBride this week. As I sit here on Wednesday, I'm definitely more inclined to start McBride over Njoku. And I think when we look at both of their situations, it's relatively very close in terms of, Njoku's situation looks like it's improved from a pass catching perspective, and McBride's situation, is what it is. I don't think his targets are going anywhere. What he does for this team, I mean, for anybody on Arizona right now, Arizona has a flat offense. It's super flat. There's not a lot of gusto, and Trey McBride fills the role really well. I'm on McBride. Joe, I think you're on McBride as well.
Yeah.
Joel traded Pickens, Rachaad White, and Jennings for Tyreek and ETN, getting pushback from the league. Is the trade fair? The trade is fair. Absolutely.
It's unconventional, but it's fair.
It's fair. You're getting back the best player in the deal, and you're trading players with a lot of upside. So I think you're fine. I think you're absolutely fine. I think it's a decent amount to give up to move into Tyreek, but I would move into Tyreek with players like that.
That's right. So we're going to jump into the deep dives here. We're going to wrap them up. We have 4 of them left. It's going to be Dylan, Austin, Jesse, KJ. Then we're going to finish the show on all the quick hitters there left. So deep dive. Love you guys, Dylan, for sending the deep dive here earlier today. Running backs are Jacob, Pollard, Tank, Rico, Mitchell. Should I try to make a move or just keep rolling with them? Your receivers are CD, London, DK, Addison. Your quarterbacks are Love and JD. Tight ends are Kraft and so I would move Kraft and probably London right now and upgrade your second receiver. Because I think you get good value for them, and they're pretty much at where their peaks are going to be. So I would want to move both of them. I also want to definitely upgrade your running back room as well. So Keaton Mitchell doesn't even need to be leagued. I mean, you can cut him and get a better player off waivers. But moving Rico and Pollard as a combo could be an upgrade. You're probably better off doing the combination of Pollard and Kraft, and then Rico and London as your 2 trade combos for a 2-for-1. But that's where I want to look at this as my starting point, Dylan.
Yeah, and Dylan, you might not need to do anything this week, but if you do go and do something right now, I do think it's important that, we're looking at Jaden Daniels' health. If any, for anybody watching, for anybody that knows me and Joe, I'm the type of player that at a certain point in time, it's okay to not have 2 quarterbacks. With the way quarterbacks have been playing in the league, and with what we've seen on the waiver wire, it's totally possible to have replacement level talent. So at a certain point in time, I think it's reasonable to think to pair one of those quarterbacks to a player that maybe worried about Baker Mayfield now. Maybe they have Patrick Mahomes, similar-ish talent there, Dylan, and moving Love, Pollard, and a tight end, because those are the trades that we've seen get through. There has to be not 2 pieces when a quarterback is involved, but 3 pieces. So when we look at it and we say, okay, what 3 pieces are you capable of moving on from? If Jaden Daniels is healthy, you don't need Love. And I get why you want him, but at a certain point in time, you won't need him. And, looking at it and saying, okay, well, Kincaid and Kraft, similarly, I do think Kraft is having an easier time of things with, better than Kincaid, but Kraft will give you more trade value right now. So if you were to move Love, Kraft, and Pollard, who has a decent amount of value right now, and move yourself into a solid, rock solid running back 2, I think you're going to be solid moving forward. And when I talk about a rock solid running back 2, you have one of them in Jacobs. The other one would be a guy like Monty. I know I talk a lot about Monty, but there's a reason why. You might even, if you're moving Love,
if you're doing that package of 3, I think you do Dowdle instead of Pollard.
You could even try to move into a Jahmyr Gibbs if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Love gives you a lot of value there, and it really is up to you, Dylan, when it comes to that. but I do think that that's where my head is. If you wanted to make a deal right now, you could probably decide to move, Tank. And like, you can't, like right now, you can't get another good running back unless you move out of London. If you were, hell bent on keeping both quarterbacks and both tight ends, you couldn't move into another good running back unless you were to move London, and you can't right now because of DK's injury. So, figure out what Jaden Daniels' injury is looking like over the next couple of weeks. He should be good to go soon. And then move one of those tight end, like I just said, move one of them. Smitty,
right.
Smitty, we did answer this question. I saw you asked, did we answer this question? We did answer this question. We said keep Laporta. We said keep Laporta on that one. So let's jump into a couple more quick hits here, Joe.
No, we're going to finish the deep dives, Bob. We're finishing the deep dives.
Okay, finish the deep dives. All right. So Austin here. When it comes down to grade the team, Love, Baker, J.J. Higgins, Reed, Thomas, Walker, Bijan, Chase Brown, Hunt, Bigsby, Aaron Jones, Kittle, Kmet, Aubrey, Lyons, D. I love this team.
Yeah, that's a good team, dude.
I give this team like a 9. You don't really have a lot of space to improve, Austin, but I would clear and trim some fat, right? So what Joe and I have been talking about all episodes, as we prepare ourselves for the playoffs, as we move into the playoff sphere of things, we have to think about trotting out our best lineup, trotting out the best possible players in the best possible matchups. And what Joe was communicating earlier about T. Higgins, when we look at the back end of the season, both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are talented. Week 15, 16, 17, Denver, Cleveland, Tennessee, going backwards up.
Yeah, no, it looks like a great finishing point. The bigger issue with Higgins, and I don't know if this is going to hit.
I'm saying it might not be, is what I'm saying.
Oh, no. My issue with Higgins is once he puts up enough good tape, he's going to sit himself out with a hangnail so that he can go get paid next year, because it's very clear the Bengals ain't going to do it. We've seen a number of teams do that before, especially out of playoff contention. Higgins is a prime habit of trimming out the fat that we're talking about. So we do Higgins and, I don't know, a Chase Brown, for example. You should be able to upgrade at that Higgins position, the number 2 receiver, have less fear moving into the rest of your season and really be set. So that would be what I would say. I do love your team at. Higgins is the only spot.
Because Brian Thomas is becoming an every week starter, I think, for most people. At the very least, a back end wide receiver 3. Tyler, Walter, we see you. Mr. Light, we see you. Jesse, we see you. Chop, we see you. NRH, we're gonna clear up the deep dives in our queue from earlier in the episode, and then we're gonna get right into those quick hits. Jesse, I have Njoku and Otten. Should I drop likely for Wandale, Dobbs, Pacheco, Shakir, ETN? And if yes, who is the best out of these guys? So this is how I would order these going forward. I do think likely is a drop.
And I don't.
I do think that he is, especially looking at who is up here to be picked up. In this order, if I were to drop likely because I have Njoku and Otten, this is the order of the people that I would pick up. I would pick up Dobbs, then Wandale, then probably Pacheco if I wanted something for the back end of the season, although I don't think he's coming back, Shakir and ETN.
Yeah, that's the order of what the pickup should be. I just would rather have likely.
What's your reasoning for wanting likely, though, Joe?
Two reasons. First off is likely was their best downfield option aside from Bateman. And I don't think Bateman has the sustainability to box out likely. Second, likely's more talented than Andrews. Andrews got this blow up mostly for squeaky wheel syndrome. And I don't think it's going to really sustain throughout the rest of the year. Once we get past Thanksgiving, I think likely is the clear number 1 tight end there. And there's tremendous value in the number 1 tight end in Baltimore. So that's my answer. It's a speculative play, but quite frankly, you're only going for a speculative play at this time. If you tell me off the bat I'm cutting a Njoku and getting Dobbs, I'm okay with that. Or cutting on and get Dobbs, I'm okay with that. Likely is just the one I don't want to cut from that group. Njoku, I think rest of the season is the worst value.
Yeah. And to that end about BTJ, Mr. Wumbo, yeah, it's a spooky playoff schedule, but what needs to be said is Brian Thomas does profile well enough against what Tennessee does good. Tennessee runs a lot of cover 3, cover 4. Brian Thomas projects well to be able to beat those defenses. So while it looks spooky on paper to look that, that might be a little bit rough, I am
also those defenses will be out of it by then, and they're going to implode.
Okay staying on a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. He has a lot of value right now. I wouldn't trade him.
KJ's going to have 2 in a row. He'll be the next quick hit as well.
I wouldn't trade BTJ unless I'm moving myself into an Amon-Ra, or I'm moving myself into a Jahmyr Gibbs, or I'm moving myself into a CeeDee Lamb. I think Brian Thomas Jr. will project well over the course of the season, and there's reason to believe that that's going to continue. KJ, anybody in the chat, if you're leaving a question in the chat, we are going to answer all the questions. We have some queued up from before. We are going to answer all the questions. We're answering a deep dive earlier from the show.
And then we're going to be returning to KJ's quick hit. So 2 KJs in a row. Then we're
I was able to pick up Juwan Jennings back off the waiver wire. Should I drop Juju for Pearsall just in case he emerges as a wide receiver 2 for San Francisco, or McMillan instead? Here's the thing I want to say about this is with this Debo injury, and Joe said this really well, or with the Debo illness, Joe said this really well, I believe yesterday, in that Pearsall projects better into a Debo rule than into the Ayuk rule. So while we have said that Pearsall is not on our radar to start this week because we want to get a little bit more knowledge about Pearsall in a game perspective, in the long term of things, I don't know if I want to own 2 San Francisco wide receivers, but it's reasonable to think that maybe Pearsall puts up a couple good games, but I'm still on Juju, but I also love McMillan moving forward. But I do want to know more about the trade situation, because if Kupp or Deontay goes there, McMillan's value is going to take a hit, but it's still going to be fine.
So Juju, if I'm ranking those 3 on the back end, it's going to go Juju, McMillan, Pearsall, because Jennings hits the lottery. He replaces Ayuk perfectly. Ayuk's the one that went out. Fine. McMillan has the opportunity if there are no trade partners that come. He was drafted to replace Godwin. He looks like a younger prototype of Godwin. If he can master the playbook, he can go ba-boom. Love it. So that would be my answer. I think I want to sit on Godwin until I see McMillan prove it. Mm-hmm. If he does prove it, he might be my priority waiver 1 next week. So that's really the risk. Do you want to pick him up for free now and have him maybe be as a dud and never get Juju back? But McMillan, that's how I feel about McMillan.
Yeah, I do like Juju a little bit better, but there is reason to believe, like Joe said, with McMillan. Joe actually said this earlier in the offseason as well, and we picked up McMillan a decent amount in best ball formats to say that, and I actually drafted McMillan on my team, but I dropped him a couple weeks ago because I needed the room over a couple other guys. But I'd keep my eye on him. I know people are going to probably spend a decent amount of time thinking about McMillan this week, and it's reasonable to think that. Out of the 2, I would take McMillan over Pearsall, but I'd want to keep Juju. KJ.
And your quick hit, KJ.
Is it valid that Kupp could get moved to the Bucs, or is that just a rumor? It's still just a rumor. It's speculative.
Everything is just a rumor right now. Best. Too many reporters putting out too much clickbait.
But there is reason to think that it would be a good move for the Bucs. The Bucs need a wide receiver.
It's not happening if the Rams win. It's 100% not happening if the Rams win.
Yeah, I think I just think it's definitely a rumor at this point in time to that degree. Tyler, we already answered that Ferguson-Otten question. We're on Ferguson, although it's pretty although for me it's a little bit closer. RGQ.
Oh, wait, did you get Walter?
Walter got offered Shaheed, Hunter Henry, and Zay Flowers for an early first and Chase Brown.
If you're in win mode now, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you need to win right now, Hunter Henry and Zay Flowers for Chase Brown is fair. If you're looking for the future and you're already on the mode where you're getting guys where you're trying to stack things, I think the early first round pick this year is going to be kind of hot. So if I'm in win now, I think it's fair. But Shaheed's out for the season, I believe. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the reason would be to pick up Shaheed because I don't know what
Dynasty League.
Yeah, but I don't know how much value he has Dynasty next year either. So I mean, if you need to win now, I think yes, I'd do it. But if you don't, I would hold on to the first. That's my initial view of that, Walter. Quick hit here. Who do I start this week? Mayfield or Mahomes? I think Joe, we're on Mahomes.
I'm on Mayfield.
You're on Mayfield?
I just saw Atlanta drop 500 yards on Tampa. They're going to need to throw the ball to win.
They are going to need to throw the ball to win. And Mahomes, for his side, if you do want to start Mahomes, like I said about him, is that game might be over by halftime, and they might just run Kareem Hunt into the ground. It's kind of the inverse. It's kind of the inverse of what Jacksonville might do. So, yeah, I mean, I'll go with Mayfield here on Wednesday. But I don't necessarily think that either of them puts up 20 points.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't. No. What?
They ain't put up 20 points. They ain't doing that.
I don't think they put up 20 fantasy points. I don't think either one does that. Quick hit. Sorry for putting a bunch of questions. No worries. But a league mate and I were just shopping Jane Daniels, Addison, and Dowdle for Caleb and Devontae. How do I feel about this?
I want Devontae.
Yeah, I mean, I love Jane Daniels, but I don't really feel like Rico Dowdle is enough to make me want him right now. I feel like he's a chip-in piece if I needed a running back, Dylan. And seeing all the questions that we had earlier, Caleb is a starter in a 12-team league. I mean, he is, realistically speaking. I don't know. I'd still want to keep Jane Daniels. I'd try to put something else together. I don't think you're getting much back if you're getting Dowdle.
If you can do it without the two quarterbacks in it, you're better off. I don't think you can.
Yeah, if it was Addison and Dowdle for Devontae, maybe that gets through. I don't think it does. Drop Mooney or Wandale for Keenan Allen.
Neither.
I wouldn't. I think that Wandale and Keenan Allen both project into the same role relatively easier, with Keenan Allen getting more yardage on a week-to-week basis. But Wandale should be fine when with Neighbors back and healthy. Slayton got a little bit more looks, and Daniel Jones did spread the ball around a little bit more, but he still got an incredible amount of targets. I wouldn't drop either of them.
Don't buy into Keenan Allen.
Are the Rams in talks with the Bucs to trade Kupp, real or just rumors? Like we said, KJ, I do think that they're just rumors. I think they're just rumors right now. But again, we have seen rumors come true. All the speculation about Devontae Adams, the Jets, and that ended up coming true. I'm still holding on to Cooper Kupp unless the trade deal, like we saw earlier, is crazy. Smitty, to your question, we answered that earlier. I do think for all the tight end questions here, Ferguson is definitely a guy that we're thinking about this week. Laporte is a guy that we're thinking about this week, and Otten are guys that we're thinking about this week. We like all three of those guys. So if you have a chance to start any of those three, you're in a good position. If you have
Mr. Bud Light Jr., I am on Team Dobbins in that trade.
Yeah, I'd rather have J.K. Dobbins. The value is there. It's in the right ballpark. But Dobbins is a clear starter for me right now, and Zach Moss is not. And this is coming from a guy who owns Zach Moss and him in another deal.
Oh, deep dive slipped past me.
Walter. So we'll get to that deep dive there.
What's the question we answered before? Yeah.
Yeah, but he wants a deep dive on it, so that's fair. Tyler, when it comes to so we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that deep dive after we.
So to pick two for you, Tyler, between Wandale, Waddle, Lockett, and Mooney, I'm going Waddle this week. I think that Miami's entire offense is going to explode. I get that there's the entire political reason is why. That guy's coaching for his life. Between the rest of them, it's Mooney. How about you, Bob?
My initial lean today would be Waddle Yeah, I mean, I think my initial lean would be Waddle and Mooney, but I do like Wandale a lot.
You love Wandale. Would you trade Harrison Jr. and Dell for DK and Brian Thomas Jr.? I know
Or
you're going to say
Brian
yes.
Thomas Jr.
You're going to say, I would say yes to DK, and I'm assuming you're saying yes to Thomas.
Yeah, I'm saying yes to Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, reasonably speaking, when you look at Brian Thomas Jr., for anybody that's like, looking to move into Brian Thomas Jr., I do think this is a little much for Brian Thomas Jr. right now, but this is the type of trade that if you want him, you're going to have to do, but I actually don't think that trade gets accepted either way. You'll probably get the trade for DK accepted because DK's hurt and you're giving him 2 starters for a hurt player, realistically speaking. But, Brian Thomas Jr. offers a good amount of upside with a good amount of receptions on a team where he's been targeted a good amount as well. DK with the MCL injury, this trade is fair for DK, but I don't think it gets done for BTJ, to be honest with you. BTJ has been performing, MHJ hasn't.
Well, that Harrison name people love a lot. So pick one of these 3, Kareem Hunt, Brian Thomas Jr., or Reed. I'm going Reed.
This week, Chop, I think I'm on Brian Thomas Jr. just because I think they're going to have to play catch up.
Yeah, Hunt's going to get a ton of carries, though. Those are good choices.
Those are all good choices. I think my initial lean on Wednesday here is Brian Thomas Jr., then Hunt, then Reed, and that's coming from a guy that likes Reed a lot. Tyler, giving people bad names out here. Yeah, we did answer that question, Smitty. NRH. Any buy mid-low running backs you guys are trading for right now? I have Henry, Ramondre, Pacheco. Wide receivers, I got CD, Tank, Dobbs, Keon, Rome, and Bateman. I mean, there's a lot of running backs.
If you're talking about a low mid receiver,
running
Warren in the Pittsburgh is one worth looking at. He's starting to recover from his hammy, and he's starting to take some share. So that would be a guy that I would look at is Warren.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Warren NRH is thank you, NRH. We do get to every question, so we appreciate everybody sticking around. Absolutely. Thank you very much. And in terms of mid-range guys, the Dobbins is a buy low. Dobbins continues to be a pretty good buy low. And again, Rashad White after the big game is no longer a buy low. Austin Eckler, if you like receptions, could be a decent one. And I keep my eye on Justice Hill. He definitely has a role in this offense, but I would be keeping my eye on Justice Hill if for any reason Henry weren't able to finish any games.
He also gives you 11 pretty consistently.
You're welcome, Tyler. We appreciate the love. Jose, at tight end, who should I start? David and Joker, Cole Kmet. It's Cole Kmet for us. Even with limited opportunities, there's a lot of upside in that game.
The game script goes really well for Kmet.
Yeah, like we said about quarterbacks, if you have more than one quarterback and you're in a 2-quarterback league, I know people waiting on buys, but I'd be looking at quarterbacks that I can regularly find on the waiver wire. And if you are sitting on Jordan Love and you're sitting on a week 12, what is it buy, or a week 10 buy, all the other teams in the league are playing, and Denver's not on the buy. Go pick up Bo Nix. I mean, Bo Nix is doing fine.
There's not really a tangible difference between number 16 and number 30 at the quarterback position.
Yeah. Should I trade Waddle and Kareem Hunt for CMC? I have the depth to do it. I also think Hunt will be useless soon with Pacheco coming back. So, Colby, where we fall here on CMC is a mystery. He's an enigma. If you need to win now, I wouldn't move off either of those players to go out and get CMC. But without seeing the rest of your team and you saying,
but he says he has the depth to do it, and CMC can win you a league. I would, if it's not going to affect your starting lineup, I would do that.
Yeah. If these players aren't starting for me, I would definitely do it. If those players aren't starting for me, I'd definitely do it. Likely or Pat Freiermuth, Joe? That's right up your alley. A nice NFC North tight end.
So for the rest of the season, it's likely. Rest of the season is likely for sure. But it's probably Freiermuth for this week. And I need this Andrews problem to sort itself out.
To go away. I have BTJ Waddle.
Andrews to go away.
Reed and Cooper. Who should I start in 2 wide receivers, 1 flex league? What I would do is I'd do BTJ, Cooper, and Reed. If I could start all 3 of those, I think you're going to be in a good situation this week.
And I'm doing Waddle, Cooper, and BTJ and Reed's a toss-up for me. Flip it in the air, whatever one comes down and you go with. But I'm definitely putting Cooper in my lineup.
Hawkinson or Otten rest of the season. I know it's hard to say without playing yet. I'm on the Hawk, Alejandro. The Hawk is an elite level talent. They're gonna work him in. Otten is gonna see a lot of looks. He's gonna get some love. They're gonna get another wide receiver there. They're gonna figure out the wide receivers. So the love will probably normalize the targets a little bit more. Hawk is a more talented player, although I'm not taking anything away from Cade Otten.
Jesse, being with us from start to finish. Love you, man.
What about Dobbs and Juju both on waiver wires? I could go either direction on this one. I really could. I think both are really good pickups. I feel like for you, Jesse, it really depends on what you see that schedule is shaking down for both teams moving forward.
Although with D-Hop there, I'd probably lean a little bit more Dobbs.
Yeah, Dobbs is getting a lot of targets on the outside. Jaguars, Lions, Bears, Niners lining up. He could definitely work some magic within that framework there. Hawkinson or Otten with the playoff schedule on the line. I'm still on the Hawk. When we look at Tampa Bay's schedule coming down in the fantasy playoffs, you're looking at Vegas, Chargers, and Dallas, and Carolina. So you have Chargers, Dallas, and Carolina. We'll take a look at those numbers tomorrow. I really want, for everybody looking to hold on to Cade Otten and Hawk, I'm writing this down right now, Joe. That's something that we should touch on tomorrow a little bit. We'll look at the numbers and play around.
Let's do our last deep dive right now.
Smitty, Laporta. You keep Laporta. Bones, it's good to see you. Good to see you. Let's get to the deep dive here from Walter, and then we'll finish up with those quick hits that are coming in, guys. DD got offered Zay, Hunter Henry, and Shaheed, or the first and Chase Brown. So here's where I fall on this, and we'll deep dive it a little bit more. Zay Flowers. Baltimore is, we see what Baltimore is right now. They're a team that has an elite running back with an elite running quarterback who doesn't have to pass the ball if he doesn't want to. And how he plays is when he finds a guy, he's the guy. Because Lamar Jackson and this coaching staff know how to look at defenses, right?
Yep.
And if Bateman is open the whole game, they're sending the ball to Bateman, and they're not even thinking about Zay Flowers. If they can send the ball 50 yards downfield and then rock it with Derrick Henry for 20 yards, just pound it in the mouth, they're going to do that. If they can get it to Andrews or Likely or Paul or Charlie Kohler over there, they'll do it. They're there to win games. And so while Zay will have opportunities against defenses, and we can look up Zay Flowers' numbers too, because Zay.
Yeah, the more I'm thinking about this, if you're in a dynasty league and you're going to have an early first round pick, it already means that you're out of it. So I don't want to get rid of your first round pick if you're out of it. Or if I am getting rid of my first round pick, I want to get essentially a no doubt, no brainer keeper in return. Like I don't want to get a 3-piece back. I want to get Gibbs back. Like just Gibbs. I want to get a quality. I don't ever to think this guy's being my starter, because the guy who you're going to get with that early first round pick is going to be an elite running back. You're going to have your choice between 4 of them entering this year's draft next year. So Walter, the more I'm sitting here thinking about this, the less and less I want to do this particular trade. If you want to move your first, I think Gibbs is the floor that you should be asking for.
Yeah. He's getting a first back though, Joe. So this is more playing for the,
No, that's not the way it was written before.
Okay. So yeah, I'm still.
It was just giving a first, not getting a first.
I'm still on keeping Zay. And Walter, that we can look into Zay Flowers a little bit more. But again, like I said about
I want the first. Out of everything that's in here, that's all I'm trying to say is I want the first. I think the Zay Flowers side is not even nearly compensating for the first.
Right. Like if you can keep your if you can keep your first round pick, because there's going to be a lot of good players coming out this year, I would want to keep my first round pick. But I think Joe, and we might be missing the boat on that one. Let me go back and look as we get to the next.
Yeah, that's your choices, left side or right side. I want the side that has the first round pick on it. That's what I want at the end of the day.
That's reasonable. I mean, it is reasonable, but I do think that Zay Flowers is a valuable asset in dynasty leagues, and people are just kind of forgetting about it. Bones, holding on to, I don't think I've seen mentioned anywhere. It's National Tight End Week, and no teams are on buys. So
that means Kittle's getting 3 touchdowns.
Roll out the tight ends, boys. Maybe you're flexing tight ends this week in the flex. I don't recommend it, but with National Tight End Week, we've gotten a lot of tight end questions. Laporta, Otten, Cole Kmet, Hawk are some of the guys that we got rolling. Hunter Henry as well. Adam, Brian Thomas or Jayden Reed rest this season?
Man, you guys are just picking up on Bob and I's disagreement.
So you won't get me to not like Jayden Reed. You can't get me to not like Jayden Reed, and you can't get me to not like Brian Thomas Jr. Okay. So you're asking me a question with 2 players that I do take very seriously, and I would love to own Brian Thomas Jr., but nobody will trade him to me, which is so
My
sad.
answer is Reed, because Love's a much better quarterback. So, guys, some of you guys who are team players already subscribed, you know the drill. Put at the start of your question either QH for quick hit or DD for deep dive. And if you haven't already, make sure you click either like and subscribe. We love giving you guys in your feed. That's how most of you guys are finding us anyway.
And Bones, to this point, if I'm trading starting pieces in my lineup to get CMC, I think that's a bad move. But if I'm trading bench pieces to get into CMC right now, I think that's okay. Austin, I have Justin Jefferson. So do I need to trade Higgins and Aaron Jones for a London or a receiver of that nature, or better? I'm going better. Aaron Jones, and this is something that you can go in and look at the stats in a lot of different areas. Aaron Jones is a bell cow, right? I mean, the guy does it in the ground, does it through the air. Yes, he's going to get hurt.
You should be getting A.J. Brown in return for that, Austin, to answer the quick hit.
You're giving a running back 1 and a wide receiver 2 and a very easy wide receiver 2 and a very easy running back 1 for most teams.
Yeah, you should be getting A.J. Brown as your ballpark in return.
Yeah, I think you're shooting too low. I would go higher. Juwan Jennings, no doubt about it.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like Juwan Jennings by a mile, Juwan Jennings by another mile.
Yeah, Christian Kirk actually slowed that field down.
I mean, I understand Juwan Jennings is hurt right now, but we're talking about future, right? Myra, we do answer all questions here. I have CD for the rest of the season. It's close, but I do have CD the rest of the season. The schedule for the playoffs looks particularly good. Colby, CMC trade guy. We saw it earlier. Yep. My running backs are Brees and Bijan. My wide receivers are Amari and T. Higgins. Then I had Hunt in the flex or Waddle in the flex. But if I get CMC, I could put him there. I also have Jordan Mason. Yeah, then go out
that makes total sense.
If you are able to play Jordan Mason in that flex in the time being, and you don't have to fight yourself between Waddle and Hunt, they're going to put up points, but I think that's reasonable to do. You're welcome, Jesse. Absolutely. Arrow, I just lost Chris Godwin this week. If you listened to Joe a couple weeks back, and if you listened to us a couple weeks earlier than that, we said trade Chris Godwin. We never like to see an injury. We have also said to trade into Rashee Rice and he gets injured. Trade into DK Metcalf, he gets injured. The optics are fine. The optics are there. It just sucks. This year has been full of injuries. It's like the Red Death. It's terrible. But was able to trade Mark Andrews for Chris Olave. Nice. This weekend I have Olave, James Conner, or Sutton in my slot. I have to start 2. Who do I sit?
I'm benching Olave and starting the other 2.
I start Arrow. James Conner is a volume-based start, and Sutton, again, is going to get looks against Carolina. And Olave dealing with the quarterback, I'm not ready for that yet. Do I start the Vikings kicker, Reichard, or the Falcons kicker, Kupp? Both are really reasonable players to start. As Joe has said, the game in Tampa could be an elite level matchup. And while I said Reichard over Chase McLaughlin, I think it's reasonable to think that Kupp could have a good game with the way that they moved the ball last time against them. So I'm leaning a little bit towards Kupp on this one, although I do really like Reichard. Start one, Ramondre, Javonte Williams, Chase Brown. This is not a question I like, Smitty, but I will say that I am still, out of these three, I don't know. I think for everything that I said about Javonte earlier in the episode, I don't think he's going to get a lot of receptions in this game in the second half. He's probably going to get a ton in the first half, but not probably in the second half. Ramondre is one of those players, too, that could break off something early, and the Jets are susceptible to the run. But how long will they actually be in that game? I don't know. And Chase Brown is the opposite of Javonte Williams, where he might not even be used in the second half if they're playing catch-up. So my initial lean, Joe, here on Wednesday would be in the order that he wrote it in, with Ramondre, Javonte, and then Chase Brown.
I'm going Chase Brown.
That's fair.
Sorry, Smitty. That's where I'm at. So CC, we'll get your deep dive. You'll be our last answer of the day.
Austin, quick hit in my other league. Should I trade Aaron Jones, Pitts, and Jennings for Bijan? I have Bowers and I have Amon-Ra Neighbors. Yeah, I would. Yeah. I would, Austin. I mean, like I just said about Aaron Jones, the schedule is favorable to him. He's a great player, but Bijan, you're trimming the fat. Bijan's the better player in that deal. I'd totally do that. Santiago, is Metcalf playing? If not, do I put McMillan in? Metcalf is not.
McMillan in. Yeah, you put McMillan in if Metcalf's out.
Yeah, he's not playing. From what we hear today, he's not playing. CD or Amon-Ra this week? Are you in a two-person league? Yeah, I mean, CD. CD's a dog. You can't bench CD. Interesting one here. Standard start two, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, Waddle, or Bucky Irving. Can't bring myself to start Garrett Wilson and Devontae. And
that's right, Bones. Right. That's why you need to trade Garrett Wilson.
This week, as it goes, I think it's reasonable to think that Bucky Irving falls in the end zone at least once. Mm-hmm. And I think that Garrett Wilson,
I'm putting Adams in before. If you're picking a Jet, I'm picking Adams.
Comcast. Yeah, I think out of these two, Adams is probably going to land in the end zone.
Comcast.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Bones. I think that he's more likely to land in the end zone if that's the case. Also got Hopkins from the waiver wire. What do we expect from him? I don't expect immediate greatness, but I do expect reasonable stats from him going forward, especially in Mahomes' offense. They'll use him wisely. But he is older. So, I mean, he has the capability to go for over 100 yards. If you listen to us talk.
Yeah, give him a week to settle in. Then he should be going pretty decent.
The Javonte disrespect is real, but how many times am I going to let Ramondre burn me? Smitty, this is absolutely.
That's why you should trade them both, dude.
But the disrespect.
Dumpster fires shouldn't get more fuel.
But the thing is, Smitty, the thing is true about Javonte Williams, too. He does, he can have put up 10, 15 points from receptions alone. But my disrespect this week comes only in the fact that the Panthers are terrible. And the Broncos are bad, but I think the Broncos will beat the Panthers, and I don't think it will be as close as people might think.
So the last one is CC's DD. Grade the team, Bob. Hurts, Kareem Hunt, J-Jet, Kupp, Laporta, Monty, the Vikings D, then Chubb, Juwan Jennings, Dowdle, Worthy, and Olave with Puka in the IR slot. I really, really like this team. I mean, I really like this team. This is a team that can win a championship.
Hurts, Kareem Hunt, Jettis, Kupp, Laporta, Monty.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I really like it a lot.
CC, when it comes to deep dive here, I think this team is a solid 8.5. And the reason why I say it's a solid 8.5 is because there is a lot of, when it comes to, working with your flexes, your decision making has to be on point going into your games, because like I said about our 18 league, when you're dealing with stud players and you're deciding between stud players, there's not a lot of room for error when you're dealing with other teams that have stud players as well. So probably by the back half of the season, you're probably going to be rolling Kyron and Monty in your first 2 running back positions, say if Pacheco were to come back. Right now, how you have it is probably how I would have it as well.
You have to trade one of your Rams receivers, or wait till Kupp gets traded in real life. You have to have one of those 2 things happen. Either you can't have 2 Rams in the playoffs. So if it works out where you don't and the problem took care of itself, great. If not, you need to move one of those 2 Rams.
Yeah, I think when we look at it, I just want to look at the schedule for the Rams there coming in the back end. Coming down in that back half of the season, they play Arizona, the Jets, and San Francisco. We'll have to look at how those teams play, how the wide receivers play against those coverages and stuff. But CC, to that extent, I would definitely suggest what Joe's saying. I think that Olave for you is one of those pieces that could be something you play around with in terms of trading in order to really elevate. When I say really elevate here, you have a team right now, CC, that if you wanted to move on from Hunt, you do have the capability to put a package together to move into something to secure that position for the long term of the season by going out there and looking at the bye weeks that have passed and seeing what you can get. Nobody's going to give you a super big dog or anything, because you're already rolling Kyron and Jettis out there, and people are really scared of that, especially when you consider Hurts as well. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things to think about. And I will say this, and I know Joe doesn't agree with this, but I think it's something that we were talking about with quarterback trades, especially where guys, if I can take a minor downgrade in a quarterback, like moving from Hurts to Jordan Love, something like that, to really elevate the rest of my team, I would even consider that.
I don't want to get out of Hurts at all.
The reason I say 8.5, I really love this team. The reason I say 8.5 is because I think you can secure a better running back too, and go from there. So
I don't think running back 2 is a problem.
We thank everybody for joining us. Just like Bones says, please smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. We'll be back tomorrow at 3:45 till about 5:30 to talk more fantasy football with